The brochure was already in Joshua's hand when I walked into the office that Monday morning. He stood beside the mail station at Neil Electric, turning the envelope over as if he hadn't decided where to put it. Emily was at her desk. Our service crews were gathering in the shop for the weekly operations meeting. I noticed the picture through the clear address window. It showed an older man walking beside a swimming pool. Across the top were the words, "A simpler, safer life is waiting." Joshua slid the envelope beneath a stack of supplier catalogs. "What's that?" I asked. "Just junk mail. It has my name on it." His hand stayed on the stack. Emily looked up from her computer. "What is your name on it?" Joshua gave a small laugh. "Some retirement place. They send these things to everybody." I reached past him and pulled out the envelope. It was addressed to me at the shop on Mesilla Park Drive. The return label in the upper corner had Neil Electric's name and address on it. For a few seconds, I honestly thought I was reading it wrong. My son-in-law was standing close enough to see my face. "Howard," he said, "we've got everyone waiting." I turned the envelope over again. That was where things finally came into the open, but the brochure wasn't the beginning. By then, Joshua had been preparing the ground for months, and I'd helped him do it. "My name is Howard Neal, and I'm 68 years old. Before I go on, what city are you listening from?" "I own a small electrical contracting business in Las Cruces, New Mexico. Neal Electric isn't impressive from the street. It's a tan metal building with a faded blue stripe, 6 service vans, a fenced yard, and an office air conditioner that rattles whenever the compressor starts. I opened the company in 1996. My wife helped me paint the first sign on 2 sheets of plywood laid across our kitchen table. She handled invoices at night while I worked service calls. Later, when we could afford an office and a real bookkeeper, she still came by every Friday with lunch. She died in 2021. After that, I got into the habit of keeping busy past the point of usefulness. If Emily mentioned a dripping faucet, I arrived with washers and tools. If Joshua said a breaker felt warm, I brought a meter before he finished the sentence. I installed lights over their kitchen island, replaced an outdoor panel, repaired their evaporative cooler controls, and rewired half their garage. They offered to pay at first. I always said, "Don't be ridiculous." Then they stopped offering. I didn't blame them. I'd trained them out of it. My wife used to make me sit down before dinner. It didn't matter whether I had grease on my hands or 3 calls left to return. She'd set my iced tea beside the plate and say, "The house doesn't need an electrician right now. It needs Howard." After she was gone, nobody said that. Emily was my only daughter. She'd worked as Neil Electric's bookkeeper for years. She was organized, good with customers, and better than I was at catching small billing mistakes. Joshua started as our operations manager after he married her. He scheduled crews, ordered materials, and handled many of the larger estimates. At first, he was good at it. Joshua could walk into a messy job trailer with 5 people talking at once and leave with a clear schedule. Customers liked that he answered quickly. The crews liked that he didn't hover. I trusted him because Emily trusted him and because he kept the place moving while I spent more time in the field. In early 2025, Joshua started Desert Grid Solutions. He told me about it over dinner at their house. I'd spent that afternoon replacing 2 damaged outlets in their laundry room. Emily had made green chili chicken, and Joshua waited until she brought the plates over before he mentioned the company. "It's not competition," he said. "It's a different lane." "What lane?" "Municipal energy retrofits, controls, lighting conversion, load management, bigger packages." I put down my fork. "Those packages still need electrical qualification. That's what I wanted to talk to you about." Emily kept her eyes on her plate. "In New Mexico, an electrical contractor needs a qualified person attached to the license. I had the experience and the designation. Joshua didn't. He could manage projects, prepare bids, and build a company, but he couldn't legally use my qualifications without my consent. He'd already had an agreement drafted. It was only a few pages. Desert Grid could operate under my qualifying party designation. I would review the electrical scope and remain available for compliance questions. Either of us could end the arrangement with 30 days written notice. Joshua pointed to that paragraph. "Standard exit language," he said. "So, you're never trapped." "I wouldn't sign anything without that." "Of course not." He said Desert Grid would pursue projects Neil Electric couldn't chase alone. If Desert Grid won, Neil Electric would receive installation work as a subcontractor. "It feeds both companies," he said. "You've built the field side. I can build the administrative side." Emily finally looked at me. It could give us all some breathing room. That word caught me. Us. Since my wife died, I'd been looking for ways to stay inside that word. I signed the agreement the following week. I didn't charge Joshua for using my designation. He offered a monthly fee once, lightly enough that I knew he hoped I'd refuse. Yeah, I did. I kept my copy in the locked bottom drawer of my desk at the shop. My wife had bought that desk used when we opened Neil Electric. One drawer stuck in humid weather, and the brass key had a piece of red wire wrapped through its hole. Joshua took the other signed copy. For the first several months, everything seemed fine. He asked me to review estimates. I corrected a few load calculations. Desert Grid bid smaller public jobs and lost most of them, which is normal when a company has no history. Then the Las Cruces municipal retrofit appeared. It covered lighting and electrical control upgrades across several city buildings. The total contract was worth $1,800,000. Desert Grid planned to serve as the prime contractor. Neil Electric would handle much of the installation. Joshua estimated our subcontract at enough money to keep every crew busy for most of a year. He brought a printed summary into my office and spread it across my desk. "This is the one," he said. I read through the scope. "Where's the full bid packet? I'm still building it. I need to review whatever carries my license information. You will." When, before submission, I tapped the page with one finger. Not 5 minutes before. Joshua smiled. "I know how you work." At that point, I believed he did. Around the same time, small changes started appearing at Neil Electric. The first was a pamphlet. I found it on the corner of my desk one Tuesday morning. The cover showed a gray-haired couple playing cards beneath a covered patio. It advertised a retirement community near El Paso. I carried it to Emily's desk. "Did you leave this in my office?" She glanced at the cover. "No." "Was it in the mail?" "Maybe." "Joshua opened the mail yesterday." "Why?" "I had payroll." I looked toward his office. The door was closed. Emily turned back to her monitor. "It's probably junk. You're on some mailing list." I dropped the pamphlet in the recycling bin. 2 days later, another one appeared in the break room. This one was about downsizing. It had a checklist for deciding whether your house had become too difficult to maintain. One of our electricians held it up while I poured coffee. "You trying to tell us something, Howard?" "No." He grinned. "Good. Joshua works us harder when you're gone." It was a joke. I laughed with him. Still, I took the pamphlet home instead of throwing it away. I lived in the same house my wife and I had bought years earlier. It wasn't large. The yard needed work, but I could handle it. I paid my bills. I drove every day. I still climbed ladders when the job required it, though I'd become more careful about who held the bottom. I set the pamphlet on my kitchen counter and ate reheated soup beside it. The checklist asked whether I forgot appointments, whether I felt isolated, whether family members worried about my safety. I read each question twice, then folded the pamphlet and put it in a drawer. The next change involved a customer named Martin, who managed a small warehouse on the west side. Neil Electric had serviced that property for years. Martin called my personal number one afternoon while I was replacing a contactor at a restaurant. "Howard, are you still taking commercial work?" "Of course." There was a pause. "Joshua said you were easing out." "Easing out of what?" "The company." He said Desert Grid would be handling the larger accounts. I stepped away from the restaurant's rooftop unit because the fan had started. "What exactly did he tell you?" "That you were nearly retired. I figured I'd check with you. I'm at work right now. I can hear that. Send the warehouse request to our regular office address." "Sure. I didn't want to step on anything." "You're not stepping on anything." When I returned to the shop, Joshua was at the conference table reviewing schedules. I closed the door. "Why did you tell Martin I'm nearly retired?" Joshua leaned back. "I didn't say you were retired. He remembers the word. I told him you're reducing field hours." "You are?" "That's different from leaving the company." "No one said you were leaving. He came away believing it." Joshua rubbed his chin. Then he misunderstood. Correct him. "Howard, it's one warehouse. It's my customer. It's a company customer." "And which company were you trying to send him to?" Joshua looked at me for a second. "Desert Grid can offer him a broader package." "That's not what I asked." He stood and collected the schedules. "We're supposed to benefit from each other. That was the whole arrangement. Neil Electric doesn't benefit when you move its customers. No one moved anybody." Then correct him. Joshua gave a sharp breath through his nose. "Fine. Call him while I'm here." That annoyed him. I could see it in the way he placed his phone on the table. Still, he made the call. Martin, it's Joshua Harmon. I wanted to clear something up. Howard isn't retiring. I may have explained the division of work poorly. He listened, then glanced at me. Yes, Neil Electric can handle the warehouse job. Send it through like usual. When he ended the call, he pushed the phone into his pocket. Happy? No. But the customer has an answer. That was the first time I made him reverse something in front of me. It felt small, but it mattered. Martin's work order arrived that afternoon. Emily entered it under Neil Electric, and I assigned it to one of our crews. The next morning, the mail tray on Emily's desk was empty. Has the mail come? I asked. Joshua picked it up. From the box, he said he was already outside. Our mailbox stood beside the front gate. Until then, Emily or I had collected it. Joshua had no reason to make that his job. I went to his office. 3 opened envelopes sat near his keyboard. One was a supplier statement for Neil Electric. Another was a city notice. The third carried my name. Joshua covered it with a folder. You looking for something? He asked. The mail. I'm sorting it. Why? Emily's busy. She can decide that. His mouth tightened. You're making an issue out of nothing. Then it should be easy to stop. I picked up the envelope with my name. It was an advertisement for an estate sale company. Joshua watched me read it. See? He said. Junk. Junk addressed to me is still mine. I took the other Neil Electric envelopes and walked them to Emily's desk. She looked from the envelopes to Joshua's office. What happened? Starting tomorrow, company mail comes to you or me unopened. She lowered her voice. Dad? He was helping. He can help after we know what arrived. You think he's hiding something? I think I just found my mail under his folder. Emily pressed her lips together. She didn't argue, but she didn't agree either. I went outside and checked the mailbox lock. The spare key that usually hung inside the supply cabinet was missing. That afternoon, I had the office assistant make a fresh key from mine. I handed one to Emily and kept the other in my pocket. Then I opened my locked desk drawer. The qualifying party agreement was exactly where I'd left it, beneath an old photograph of my wife standing beside our first service van. I read the agreement from beginning to end. I stopped at the 30-day paragraph, then read it again. After that, I called Joshua from my office. Bring me the complete municipal bid file tomorrow. He didn't answer right away. It's not final, he said. Bring me what exists. Howard, I've got a submission schedule, and my name is inside it. He sighed. I'll bring it when it's ready. No, bring it tomorrow. I hung up before he could turn it into another discussion. Then I placed the agreement back in the drawer, locked it, and wrapped the red wire around the key before putting it in my pocket. The next morning, Joshua arrived without the file. He came through the side door carrying 2 coffees and a cardboard tray of breakfast burritos. He set everything on the conference table before our crews came in. I figured we could start the day right, he said. Where's the bid file? He looked toward Emily's desk. Good morning to you too. Good morning. Where is it? I was working on it until midnight. Some sections aren't ready. I asked for what exists. And I'm telling you it's a mess. I've seen unfinished bids before. He pushed 1 coffee toward me. Can we do the operations meeting first? I left the coffee where it was. During the meeting, Joshua stood at the whiteboard and worked through the schedule. He assigned 2 residential calls, a panel replacement, and Martin's warehouse job. When he reached an emergency call at a pecan processing building, he turned to me. I need you on that one. Why? The main disconnect keeps tripping. They already had another contractor look at it. Who's going with me? I've got everyone placed. I looked at the board. 1 electrician was assigned to replace 3 ceiling fans. Another had a half-day lighting repair. You could move somebody. We promised those time windows. What are you doing? I have a desert grid planning meeting. There it was. His new company got the planning meeting. Mine got the emergency. I could have reassigned the schedule myself. I own the business. Instead, I took the work order. That's what I mean when I say I helped create the problem. Joshua learned that if he left a hard job uncovered, I would cover it. Emily learned that if a family expense appeared, I would reach for my wallet. I told myself I was protecting them from stress. What I was really doing was making sure they kept reaching for me. The pecan building sat south of town, past a line of equipment yards and low warehouses. The electrical room was hot and smelled like dust and old insulation. I spent 40 minutes checking the disconnect before I found a loose connection at one lug. Heat had discolored the metal around it. I called the shop. Emily answered. Neil Electric. It's me. Have someone bring the replacement parts from the supply house. Joshua said you could probably make it safe until tomorrow. Joshua isn't standing in front of it. All right, what do you need? I gave her the part numbers. She typed them down. Before we hung up, she said, "Are you still upset about the mail?" "I'm not upset. You made a new key. The old one disappeared. Joshua probably put it somewhere. Then he can find it." She went quiet. I waited. Finally, she said, "He thinks you don't trust him. He told a customer I was nearly retired. He corrected that. Because I made him. Dad, I'm trying to work. So am I." The parts arrived after lunch. I finished the repair close to 4. By the time I returned to the shop, Joshua's truck was gone. I found the coffee he'd bought me still sitting on the conference table. Emily had thrown away the burrito wrappers, but she'd left my cup there. The lid had sunk in the middle. I carried it to the sink. "Did his planning meeting go well?" I asked. "I think so." "He didn't come back?" "He's working from home. Did he leave the bid file?" Emily clicked through something on her screen. "Not that I know of." I washed the cold coffee down the drain. She watched me from her desk. "Can you stop by tonight?" "For what?" The lights in the garage flickered again. "Did Joshua check the breaker?" "He said he'd get to it." "When?" "I don't know." "That's why I'm asking." I dried the cup and put it in the cabinet. I just spent the day on an electrical problem he handed me. "This is our house. I know where you live." She leaned back. "Forget it. That word worked on me every time. I'll come by after I change." "You don't have to." I said I'll come. I drove home first. My work shirt was stiff with sweat across the back. I showered, put on clean jeans, and ate 2 crackers while standing at the kitchen counter. There was a message on my answering machine from the pharmacy. Nothing from Emily saying the garage could wait. Nothing from Joshua thanking me for covering the emergency call. I loaded my meter and a few tools into my pickup. When I arrived at their house, Joshua's truck was in the driveway. He was inside at the kitchen island with his laptop open. Papers covered the countertop around him. Emily opened the door. "You came. You asked me to." She kissed my cheek. "I made extra rice." I wanted that to be the reason I'd been invited. For 1 second, I let myself believe it was. Then she handed me the garage remote. "The lights are doing it now." The problem was a loose neutral in a junction box above the workbench. Joshua had stored paint cans and camping equipment directly below it. I had to move everything before setting up my ladder. He came into the garage while I was tightening the connection. "Be careful up there," he said. "I've heard electricity can be dangerous. I'm serious. So am I." He stood with his hands in his pockets. "I was going to look at that this weekend. It took 10 minutes. I've been busy." I noticed. He glanced at my open tool bag. "I'll bring the bid materials tomorrow." "All of them?" "What I have. That's what I asked for this morning." "I know." "Then why didn't you bring them?" He looked toward the kitchen door before answering. "Because parts of the staffing section still need work. My license information isn't in the staffing section. It's all connected." "No, Joshua. A bid is divided into sections for a reason." He crossed his arms. "Can we not do this in my garage?" "You brought it up. I said I'd bring it." I climbed down and folded the ladder. On the workbench sat a new box containing an outdoor security light. Joshua tapped it with 2 fingers. "Since you're already here, could you put this over the back door?" I looked at the box, then at him. "Not tonight. It's 4 screws. It also needs a cable run. I thought there was one. There isn't." His expression changed. Not anger exactly. More like surprise that the usual answer had failed. "All right," he said. "Some other time." I carried my tools to the kitchen. Emily was placing plates on the table. "Did you fix it?" "Yes." "Thank you. The security light needs new wiring." She looked toward the garage. "Can you do that Saturday?" "No." She stopped with a serving spoon in her hand. "I'm working Saturday," I said. Joshua said the schedule was light. Joshua has his schedule. I have mine. Neither of them spoke for a moment. Then Emily put the spoon down. "Can we just eat?" We sat at the same table where I'd signed the qualifying agreement. The chair beside me had once been my wife's place when we visited. Emily used to set out a small bowl of salsa for her because she didn't like pouring it over everything. The bowl wasn't there anymore. Dinner conversation stayed on safe subjects for a while. Emily mentioned a problem with a supplier payment. Joshua talked about the city project without giving me any useful details. I asked whether he had finished the electrical scope. "Almost," he said. "Who prepared the compliance page?" "I did." "Using which license number?" He put down his fork. Yours. Then I need to see it. You will. Emily looked between us. Can we please have one meal without talking about work? I almost laughed. I'd been invited because their garage lights flickered. Joshua had asked about another repair before I put away my ladder. Now work had become improper because I wanted an answer. All right, I said. We ate quietly. After dinner, I carried my plate to the sink. Emily wrapped leftovers in a plastic container and handed it to me. You don't have to rush off. What would we do? She blinked. I don't know. Sit. Joshua had already reopened his laptop. I sat with her in the living room. She folded a blanket at one end of the couch and asked whether I'd been sleeping. Enough. Are you taking care of yourself? I repaired a commercial disconnect in a hot room for most of the day. That's not what I asked. What are you asking? She picked at a loose thread on the blanket. You spend a lot of time alone. I work with people every day. At work. That's where people are. She sighed. Mom wouldn't want you living like this. I felt my jaw tighten. Your mother didn't use other people to finish her sentences. I'm not doing that. You just did. I worry about you. Then ask how I'm doing. I did. No. You asked if I was maintaining myself properly. Her eyes dropped to the blanket. From the kitchen, Joshua said, Emily's just trying to help. I looked past her toward him. You can let her answer. He closed the laptop halfway. You've been touchy since yesterday. Since I asked for my own mail? Since you decided everything has a hidden meaning. Emily stood. Stop. Both of you. I got up and picked up my leftovers. At the door, she touched my arm. Dad, wait, I did. She glanced back toward the kitchen. I should have called before the garage got bad. That isn't the part bothering me. What is? I wanted to tell her. The words were right there. I wanted to say that I missed being invited before something broke. I wanted to say that every time they needed money, labor, a license, or an emergency shift, I felt useful for a few hours. Then I went home and ate alone beside the silence. Instead, I said, Tell Joshua I expect the file in the morning. Her hand fell from my arm. Fine. I drove home with the plastic container on the passenger seat. My wife used to keep a small notebook by the telephone. She wrote down birthdays, appointments, and things people mentioned needing. After she died, I started using the blank pages for my own reminders. That night, I opened the notebook and went back through several months. Most of the entries involving Emily and Joshua were tasks. Replace kitchen dimmer. Pick up Emily's car from shop. Cover Joshua's Friday schedule. Pay emergency plumber to be repaid. Review desert grid estimate. Garage lights. I found only 2 dinners that hadn't been attached to some kind of help. One was my birthday. The other was the anniversary of my wife's death. I sat at the table with my pen in my hand. My first instinct was to blame them. Then I looked at the way I'd written everything. I hadn't recorded visits. I'd recorded jobs. Even in my own notebook, I had turned being their father into a service list. The next Saturday, I went to the shop early. The schedule was light, just as Emily had said. I had one crew replacing fixtures at a medical office and another finishing Martin's warehouse call. I could have spent the day wiring Joshua's security light. At 9, Emily texted me. Are you coming by today? I stared at the message before answering. For lunch? 3 dots appeared, disappeared, then returned. Joshua thought you were doing the light. I typed, I'm not doing electrical work today. I can come for lunch if you want me there. This time, her answer took almost 5 minutes. Okay, noon, I arrived without my tool bag. Joshua opened the door and looked toward my pickup. You didn't bring your ladder? No. He stepped aside. The security light box still sat in the garage. I walked past it. Emily had made sandwiches, nothing elaborate, turkey, cheese, potato chips, and sliced tomatoes. She looked nervous when I sat down, as if she expected me to begin another argument. I didn't. We ate. Joshua checked his phone several times. Emily asked about a restaurant my wife and I used to visit near the old downtown mall. I told her it had closed years ago. I remember the red booths, she said. Your mother always wiped the seat before she sat down. Emily smiled. She carried those little packets in her purse. She carried everything in that purse. For a few minutes, nobody needed me to repair anything. When I left, the light was still in its box. It wasn't a great victory. Joshua barely spoke to me through lunch, and Emily hugged me with one arm while holding the door. But she had said yes after I removed the task. At the shop on Monday, I checked the mail myself. Then I unlocked my office and found a thin folder in the center of my desk. A yellow note was stuck to the front in Joshua's handwriting. Draft portions, not for distribution. I opened it. The cover page identified Desert Grid Solutions as the bidder. The next few sections described equipment, projected savings, and the proposed schedule. The compliance page was missing. So was every page bearing my license information. I carried the folder to Joshua's office. His chair was empty. Emily watched me from across the room. "Where is he?" "At a meeting." "What meeting?" She hesitated. "Desert Grid." I held up the folder. "Did he print this here?" "Yes." "Did you see what he left out?" "No." I placed it beside her keyboard. He gave me everything except the part I asked to see. Emily looked down at the folder. For once, she didn't defend him. Then she turned to her computer and opened the office printing history. "He printed a larger document," she said. "How much larger?" She checked the page count. 47 pages. The folder on her desk held 19. She read the number again, more slowly this time. "That's not a draft difference," I said. Emily moved the mouse and opened the job details. The printer showed the document name, DG S City Retrofit Final Submission. The timestamp was from Friday afternoon. I pointed at the word final. He told me he was working on it until midnight last night. He could have made changes after this. Then there would be another file. Not if he worked on his laptop. "Did he print the 19 pages this morning?" She checked. "Yes." "What was that file called?" She opened the second entry. Howard Review Portions. Neither of us said anything. That was the first inconsistency I could prove without asking Joshua to explain himself. He had taken a completed document, removed more than half of it, and labeled the remainder for my review. "Can you print this record?" I asked. Emily's hand stayed on the mouse. "It's only the printer history. I know what it is." "Then print it." She looked toward Joshua's empty office. "What are you going to do with it?" "Ask why your husband separated the pages. You can ask without carrying evidence around." "I already asked without evidence." Her face tightened. "You're making me choose sides." "No. I'm asking the bookkeeper to print a company record. This isn't just company business. It became company business when he printed a city bid here." She folded her arms. "Desert Grid reimburses us for supplies. Does it reimburse us for your time? I don't track every minute." "Why not?" "Because I'm helping." The word landed harder than she intended. I looked at the 19-page folder beside her keyboard. "So am I." She turned back to the screen and printed the record. I took the sheet from the tray. It showed 47 pages, the document name, the date, the computer used, and Joshua's Neil Electric login. "Thank you," I said. She didn't answer. I went into my office and called Joshua. He picked up after the third ring. "I'm walking into something." "What happened to the other 28 pages?" Silence. Then he said, "What are you talking about?" "The final submission you printed Friday." "That wasn't final?" "You named it final." "It's a file name." "You gave me a separate file called Review Portions." "Yes, because those are the relevant portions. I decide what's relevant to my license. You don't need to read the lighting manufacturer's warranty or the project management charts. I asked for the whole file, and I'm trying not to waste your time. That's thoughtful. Bring it anyway." He lowered his voice. "Did Emily go into my files?" "No. Your print job is in the office history." "You had her checking up on me?" "I asked why 19 pages came out of a 47-page document. I don't have time for this right now." "When do you have time?" "I'll call you later." He hung up. I stared at the phone for a moment, then called him again. This time, he rejected the call. I printed a short email. "Joshua, I am requesting the complete municipal retrofit bid file, including every page and attachment that identifies or relies on my qualifying party designation. Please provide it at Neil Electric by 10 tomorrow morning." Howard I sent it to his Desert Grid address and his Neil Electric address. Then I copied Emily. She came to my doorway less than a minute later. "You copied me? You maintain our records." "You could have told me first. You were sitting 20 feet away." "That's not what I mean." "I want the request recorded." She held up her hands. "This is exactly what I was talking about. You two are turning everything into a contest. I'm not competing for my own name. He said he would show you. He showed me less than half. Maybe the rest really isn't relevant. Then there's no reason to keep it from me." She looked tired. It was still before 9. "I have payroll," she said. "Go do payroll." She walked away. I left my office door open and worked at my desk. I reviewed service tickets, approved a material order, and called the customer at the medical office. Every few minutes, I heard Emily answering phones in the front room. At 10:30, Joshua still hadn't returned. At 11, one of our electricians called about a damaged conduit at a retail unit. Joshua normally handled dispatch changes. Emily stood in my doorway with the message. "He wants to know if he should stay or go to the next call. Tell him to make the conduit safe and finish it. That puts him late for the next one. Move the next call to tomorrow morning. They requested today. Then call and explain." She frowned. "Joshua usually does that. Joshua isn't here." I picked up the phone myself and called the customer. They agreed to the morning appointment. Then I updated the schedule on the whiteboard. It had been a while since I'd handled the full day that way. Not because I couldn't, but because Joshua had gradually taken over the routine decisions. He liked to say it freed me for higher-level work. Standing at the board, I noticed 3 service calls marked DGS referral. "What are these?" I asked. Emily came over. "Desert Grid sent them." "Sent them from where?" "I don't know. Their website, probably." I read the addresses. One was an office complex Neil Electric had serviced 2 years earlier. Another belonged to a property manager whose name I recognized. These aren't new customers. They called Desert Grid. Why? Maybe they found that number first. I took a picture of the board with my phone. Emily gave me a guarded look. "Now what?" "Nothing today." At noon, Joshua called her. I could hear only her side. "He's here." A pause. "Yes, he copied me." Another pause. "I don't know, Joshua. You need to talk to him." She turned her chair away from my office. "No, I didn't give him anything. It's the printer log." Her voice dropped after that. A few minutes later, she came in carrying her purse. "I'm getting lunch. Bring something back if you want. I'm meeting Joshua, all right?" She waited as if I should object. I didn't. After she left, I went to the break room and ate the leftovers she'd given me. The rice had dried around the edges, but the chicken was still good. I used the same plastic fork I kept in my desk. I thought about calling my wife. That habit hadn't completely left me. When something happened at the company, I still reached toward the phone before remembering there was no one at home to answer. She would have listened without interrupting. Then she would have asked the question I was avoiding. "What do you actually want?" At first, I wanted Joshua to bring the file and apologize for making me ask twice. Then I wanted Emily to say she understood why it mattered. Sitting alone in the break room, I realized neither answer was enough. I needed to know where my name was being used and what had been promised around it. Emily returned without Joshua. She placed a sandwich on my desk. "I already ate. Save it for later." "What did he say?" "He said the complete file is at the Desert Grid office." "Why didn't he bring it?" "He doesn't want unfinished material circulating." "It was final on Friday. He said that meant final layout." "And the content?" "He said some of it changed." "Did he say which parts?" "No." "What time is he coming back?" "He isn't." I pushed my chair away from the desk. "Where's the Desert Grid office key?" Her eyes widened slightly. "I don't have one. You do their bookkeeping? Only some of it." "From here?" "Mostly." "What does mostly mean?" She put the sandwich beside my keyboard. "I help with invoices and expense entries." "Using Neil Electric's computer?" "I use my computer. That computer belongs to Neil Electric." She looked toward the front office. "Do you really want to do this now?" "Yes." Her voice dropped. "Joshua's company can't afford a full office staff yet. I spend a few hours a week helping him." "During which hours?" "I make it up." "That isn't an answer. I work late all the time." "I know." "I thought you were working late for this company." She pressed her fingers against her forehead. "I'm not stealing from you. I didn't say you were. You're acting like it. I'm asking where Neil Electric stops and Desert Grid begins. They're supposed to work together. Working together doesn't mean I lose track of my employees' time. I'm your daughter. You're also my bookkeeper." She flinched. I wished I could take back the tone without taking back the question. "I'm not trying to trap you," I said. "I need a straight answer." She sat in the chair across from me, usually 4 or 5 hours a week. "Paid by whom?" "Neil Electric." "Does Joshua know?" "Of course he knows." "Did you think I knew?" She looked down at her hands. "I thought you wouldn't mind. There was the wider problem. It wasn't just a borrowed printer or a few diverted calls. Desert Grid was already using our staff time, our equipment, my designation, and part of our customer history. Everyone involved had decided I would approve because I usually did. Starting today, track the hours separately, I said. Fine. Desert Grid reimburses Neil Electric for them. Joshua isn't going to like that. He doesn't have to like an invoice. This project hasn't paid anything yet. Then he can do his own bookkeeping. She stood so quickly the chair rolled backward. You know what? Maybe I will. That isn't what I said. It's where this is going. Emily. She picked up the chair and pushed it beneath the desk. You always do this. Do what? You help until someone depends on you. Then you remind them it was yours to give. I didn't answer immediately. She was angry, but that didn't make her entirely wrong. I should have charged for the work from the beginning, I said. That's your answer? My answer is that I made an informal arrangement where a formal one was needed. You mean with family? I mean with my business. She walked out. The front door closed hard enough to shake the glass. For the next hour, I covered the phones myself. I wrote down 2 service requests and scheduled an estimate. It wasn't difficult. It was only unfamiliar because I had let other people stand between me and the daily flow of my own company. At 2:15, Joshua came through the side door. He didn't greet me. He went straight to Emily's empty desk. Where is she? She left. Why? You'll have to ask her. He turned toward my office. What did you say? I asked her to track the hours she works for Desert Grid. She already works more than you pay her for. Then we should fix that too. He stared at me. You're blowing up a good arrangement over a printer report. I'm clarifying the arrangement because of the printer report. He came into my office and shut the door. The city submission closes Friday at 5, he said. I need this week to finish it. I need the file by 10 tomorrow. You're holding me to an arbitrary deadline while I'm facing a real one. My license is in your bid. That makes my deadline real. You've already reviewed the electrical scope. I reviewed estimates. I haven't reviewed your representations. What representations? Whatever you wrote about why my designation will remain with Desert Grid. His face went still. It lasted only a second, but I saw it. Then he said, That's standard qualification language. Good. Bring it. You're looking for a problem. I'm looking for my name. He walked to the window and looked out at the service yard. If this bid gets delayed, Neil Electric loses the subcontract. You told me the submission wasn't finished. It's substantially finished. Then 47 pages should be easy to print. He turned back. Some of the strategy is confidential. From your qualifier. From a separate company. I let that sit between us. Finally, I said, Take me to your office. Now? Yes. I have calls. So do I. I've been covering yours. He checked his watch. This is unnecessary. Then it won't take long. He tried 2 more arguments. Parking was difficult. The file had handwritten notes. He needed to speak with Emily first. I picked up my keys. I'll follow you. Desert Grid rented 2 rooms in a low office building off Amador Avenue. I'd been there once before Joshua moved in. The front room now held a desk, 2 folding tables, sample light fixtures, and 3 cardboard boxes of project binders. No one else was there. Joshua unlocked the second room. His laptop sat on a metal desk beside a printer. The working file is on there, he said. Print it. He woke the computer and entered his password with his body angled toward the screen. Do you want all the equipment attachments? All 47 pages. It's 51 now. All 51. The printer began feeding paper into the tray. I stood beside the folding table while each page came out. Joshua gathered them before I could read them, squared the stack, and fastened it with a black binder clip. You can review it here, he said. I'm taking it to Neil Electric. It contains Desert Grid's pricing. I'm responsible for what's attached to my qualification. You can't copy or distribute it. I didn't ask to. He held the stack a moment longer, then let go. My deliberate request had finally worked. I had the complete file. It also came with a deadline I hadn't known that morning. The bid closed in 4 days, and Joshua had already shown me he would rather remove pages than let me read them. I carried the file to my pickup and placed it flat on the passenger seat. Back at Neil Electric, Emily's car was still gone. I closed my office door, set the 51 pages beneath the desk lamp, and began reading from the first line. The first 20 pages were ordinary enough. There were equipment lists, energy estimates, staffing charts, and a schedule divided by city building. Joshua had built a serious bid. I could see why he was protective of it. My license number appeared on page 23. Under my name, the file described me as Desert Grid's qualifying party and senior electrical advisor. That part was accurate. The next sentence wasn't. It said I had committed to remain attached to Desert Grid through final completion of the municipal project. I drew a line beneath it. Our agreement didn't promise that. It let either of us end the arrangement with 30 days written notice. I had no immediate plan to use that provision, but Joshua had turned a revocable agreement into a guarantee. I kept reading. A section titled Organizational Continuity began on page 31. It described Neil Electric as Desert Grid's installation partner. Then it said the relationship represented the first stage of a planned combination of field operations. There was no combination agreement. There hadn't even been a conversation about one. The next paragraph said, I was reducing my daily responsibilities at Neil Electric in preparation for retirement. Joshua was described as the person already managing those responsibilities and leading the transition. I read that paragraph 3 times. It explained Martin's phone call. It explained why Joshua had used the phrase nearly retired. He wasn't talking casually. He was building a business story and teaching other people to repeat it. The file didn't say he owned Neil Electric. It didn't claim I had sold him anything. It did something more careful. It made my departure sound inevitable. By the time a reviewer finished reading, the obvious picture was that I had already chosen Joshua to take over, merge the work, and keep my designation attached while he did it. I turned to the last section. The signature page had a line for Joshua as Desert Grid's managing member. His name and date were already there. My name appeared beneath a qualification statement, but the signature line was blank. That told me he still needed something from me. I sat back and looked at the clock. It was almost 4. The city deadline was Friday at 5. I had 4 days to decide what I would sign, what I would refuse, and whether I was willing to cost Neil Electric the largest subcontract we'd ever been offered. I copied the 4 pages that concerned my role. I didn't copy Joshua's pricing or equipment details. Then I returned the complete file to its binder clip. Emily came in shortly after 4:30. She stopped when she saw me at my desk. I went home for a while, she said. All right, Joshua told me you went to his office. I did. She looked at the stack. He gave it to you? After I stood beside the printer, her purse slid from her shoulder onto the chair. Did you find what you wanted? I found what he removed. I handed her the copy of page 23. She read the sentence about my commitment. What's wrong with this? She asked. I didn't commit through project completion. You agreed to be his qualifier. Under an agreement, either of us can end. But you weren't planning to end it. That doesn't turn it into a guarantee. She moved to the next page. Her eyes slowed when she reached the planned combination. I watched her face. You knew about that, I said. She didn't answer. Emily. I knew he wanted the companies to work more closely. That isn't what the page says. He talks about combining operations. With you? Sometimes. With me? She lowered the paper. I thought he had. You thought, or he told you. He said you were open to it. When? I don't remember. That's convenient. Don't do that. Do what? Talk to me like I'm one of your employees caught changing a timesheet. You are my bookkeeper reading a false description of my company. Her eyes filled, but she didn't cry. I believed you supported the plan, she said. What plan? For Joshua to run more of Neil Electric, for you to step back. For the companies to share crews. That's 3 different things. They're connected. Only if I agree. She sat across from me. You complain about being tired. I'm allowed to be tired without giving away my business. No one said anything about giving it away. He wrote that my company's field operations will be combined with his. It says planned combination. Planned by whom? She looked down at the pages. I waited until she answered. Joshua, and you. I didn't write the bid. You knew he wanted it. Yes. Why didn't you ask me? Because I thought you knew. That isn't an answer. She placed the papers on my desk. You've been doing less in the office. Joshua runs the schedule. I handle the books. You said that was what you wanted. I said I wanted help. You said you trusted us. I did. She leaned forward. Then what did you think would happen eventually? Eventually isn't Friday at 5. She sat back. The air conditioner kicked on above us and made the vent rattle. For a few seconds, that was the only sound in the room. Finally, she said, I didn't know he described it this way. Did you know he was telling customers I was retiring? No. You didn't ask why retirement pamphlets kept appearing? I thought they were mail. Mail Joshua was opening. She shook her head. Now you're making everything part of one scheme. I'm reading his words. You're assuming the worst. I'm assuming the sentence means what it says. She stood and walked to the door. Where are you going? To call him. Call him from here. She turned around. Why? Because I don't want another version of the conversation later. That's insulting. It's practical. To you, maybe. She took out her phone and called him anyway. Can you come back to Neil Electric? She asked. She listened. No, now. Another pause. Because Dad read the whole file. She looked at me while Joshua spoke. Yes. Those pages. She ended the call. He's coming. While we waited, I opened the qualifying party agreement again. I compared its language with the statement in the bid. I left both documents open on my desk. Joshua arrived 12 minutes later. He walked into my office, saw the copied pages, and shut the door behind him. You could have called me, he said. I did. You declined the call. I was in a meeting. Sit down. I'd rather stand. Emily stayed near the door. I pointed to the first marked sentence. Remove this. Joshua didn't look at it. Which part? The commitment through final completion. That language is required to establish capacity. It isn't true. You're currently attached to Desert Grid. Currently isn't through completion. If we say the designation might disappear at any time, the city won't consider the bid stable. Then don't promise what you don't control. His eyes moved to the next marked page. The transition section stays, he said. No. It explains why Neil Electric can perform the subcontract. Neil Electric can perform because it has crews and experience. Reviewers want to see integrated management. They can see a subcontract. That makes us look temporary. You are temporary, Emily said his name quietly. Joshua. He turned to her. What? She didn't know I'd never agreed, I said. His jaw tightened. I told her you supported closer integration. I supported a subcontract. You supported Desert Grid. I allowed you to use my designation. That isn't permission to write my retirement. You've talked about retiring for years. I've talked about fishing, too. You didn't put a boat in the bid. Emily looked away. Joshua didn't smile. He picked up the page and tapped the paragraph. This is positioning. It shows continuity. Nobody is forcing you out. Then remove it. You're getting hung up on wording. Words are what you submitted. I haven't submitted it. You called the file final. We've covered that. Not to my satisfaction. He set the page down. If I strip out the continuity plan, we lose points. Then write a truthful one. What would you like me to write? That the 68-year-old qualifier might pull out whenever he has a bad morning, Emily said. That's enough. I looked at Joshua. Is that how you talk about me at Desert Grid? He exhaled and rubbed the back of his neck. No. Is that how you talk about me to customers? No. To the city? I'm trying to make the bid competitive. With a retirement I haven't announced. It's going to happen at some point. So will yours. That's not the same. It is to you. He stared at me. I slid the unsigned qualification page toward him. I'm not signing this file. Emily stepped closer to the desk. Dad, wait. I'll review a corrected version. Joshua laughed once, without humor. You understand what you're doing, right? I'm asking for accurate statements. You're putting $1,800,000 at risk over 2 paragraphs. The contract isn't ours yet. Our bid has a real chance. Then correct it. He paced to the window. The subcontract would put Neil Electric in the best position it's had in years. New equipment, stable schedules, no scrambling for service calls. That doesn't make the paragraphs true. It makes them necessary. I gathered the copied pages and placed them inside my desk drawer with the agreement. Joshua turned. Don't lock those away like I forged your signature. I didn't say you did. You're treating normal proposal language like fraud. I'm keeping a copy of what uses my name. Emily lowered herself into the other chair. What happens now? She asked. Joshua corrects the file. I review the correction. And if he doesn't, she said. I looked at her. Then I don't sign. Joshua came back to the desk. No signature means no bid. Then you have your deadline. He put both hands on the edge of my desk. You know who else loses if you do this? Neil Electric. Your crews. Emily. You don't get to pretend you're only protecting yourself. I'm not pretending anything. This company needs the work. This company existed before Desert Grid, and it's been flat for 3 years. That doesn't make it yours to combine. He straightened. I have spent years making Neil Electric function, while you run around fixing outlets for anyone who calls. I built the schedule. I kept customers informed. I found this bid. You did good work here. Good work? Yes. That's how you describe an employee you can replace. How should I describe it? As the reason you still have a company worth protecting. Emily stood between us before either of us moved closer. Stop, she said. This is getting out of hand. Joshua stepped back first. He picked up the complete file. I'll revise the qualification sentence, he said. I'm not gutting the transition plan. You'll remove my retirement. I'll soften it. Remove it. He tucked the file under his arm. I'll send something tomorrow, before 10. I have a city deadline. So do I. He opened the door. Emily remained beside my desk. I'm going with him. That's your choice. She looked as if she wanted me to stop her. I didn't. After they left, I updated the password on my office computer and locked the copied pages in the bottom drawer. Then I went through the service schedule and marked every Desert Grid referral for review. At 6, an email arrived from Joshua. The subject line read, Revise Continuity Language. The attachment removed the word retirement. In its place, it said, I would transition away from daily operational control after the municipal award. The meaning hadn't changed. He'd only made it harder to object to. A second email came a minute later. If this language isn't acceptable, we need a family meeting before Friday. Emily agrees. I read both messages, printed them, and placed them with the bid pages. Then I checked the front door, turned off the shop lights, and sat alone in my office with the desk drawer locked beside my knee. Until that day, I had treated Joshua's ambition as something I could support or decline one favor at a time. The bid showed me that he was already presenting those favors as a settled future, and now he wanted the 3 of us in a room so my refusal could be treated as a family problem. I didn't answer the second email that night. The next morning, I arrived before 7 and printed the original continuity page beside Joshua's revision. I marked the sentences that still assumed I would leave daily control. Then I wrote one line beneath them, No transition has been agreed. I scanned the page and sent it to both of them. Joshua called while I was opening the yard gate. You couldn't just reply to the email? I did reply. You marked it up like a rejected inspection. It needs correction. We need to meet. About the bid, yes, as a family. No. The bid is business. He was quiet for a moment. Emily's worried about you. Is she there? Yes, put her on. He didn't. Instead, he said, She's getting ready. Then I'll speak to her at work. She isn't coming in this morning. Why? She needs space. From bookkeeping, from you. I closed the gate behind me. Does she need the whole day? You really don't hear yourself. I'm asking because payroll is due. I'll handle it. You don't handle payroll. I can handle a morning. Then make sure the direct deposit file is released before noon. He hung up. I stood beside the gate with my keys in my hand. The sun had barely cleared the low buildings across Mesilla Park Drive. One of our vans pulled in, and the driver raised 2 fingers from the steering wheel. I raised mine back. Inside, I checked the payroll calendar. Emily had prepared the amounts but hadn't released the file. I had approval access as the owner, though I hadn't used it in months. I reviewed each employee, compared the hours with the service records, and found 2 entries that needed correction. Both were Desert Grid planning hours entered as Neil Electric office time. The total wasn't large. That wasn't the point. I removed those hours from the company payroll report and saved them to a separate worksheet. Then I approved the rest. At 8:15, I sent the worksheet to Emily. Please invoice these hours to Desert Grid. Payroll for Neil Electric is released. She replied with one sentence. You could have waited for me, I wrote back. Employees should not have to wait. At 9, Joshua came in through the shop instead of the office. He carried his laptop under one arm and walked straight toward Emily's desk. She's not here, I said. I know. He sat in her chair and opened the computer. What are you doing? Checking payroll. It's done. His head lifted. You released it? Yes. Did you change anything? 2 Desert Grid entries. Those were bid support. Then Desert Grid can pay them. He signed into the computer. You went through Emily's work while she was upset. I did my job while she was absent. She isn't absent. She's taken the morning. That means she's absent. He looked at the worksheet, then turned the monitor toward me. You took $400 out of her payroll. No, I moved $400 of Desert Grid work off Neil Electric's report. You're docking your daughter because she helped my company. Her paycheck is unchanged. Neil Electric still pays her. Today it does. Desert Grid now owes Neil Electric. Joshua pushed the chair back. You're proving my point. Which point? That you're too involved in details you stopped managing years ago. I just manage payroll correctly. You're using procedure to punish us. I picked up the printed time entries and set them in front of him. Were these hours for Desert Grid? Yes. Then the result is correct. He had no answer to that. He closed Emily's computer and stood. The revised bid language is reasonable, he said. It still assumes I'm leaving. It says you'll transition from daily control. You already have. I assigned the schedule before you worked here. I can do it again. Why would you want to? Wanting help isn't surrender. He tucked the laptop under his arm. We're meeting Thursday at Emily's house. I didn't agree. She wants to talk somewhere private. About what? Everything. That isn't an objective. He shook his head. You don't talk like a normal person anymore. What does a normal person say? He sits down with his daughter when she's worried. He doesn't sign a false bid to make her feel better. Joshua started toward his office. 10 tomorrow, I said. Corrected file. He kept walking. At 10:30, a woman came through the front door carrying a canvas folder. She looked around the office, then smiled at me. Mr. Neal? Yes. I'm Claire. We spoke by email. No, we didn't. Her smile faltered. Howard Neal. That's me. She opened the folder and checked a printed page. I may have misunderstood. I'm here for the senior transition consultation. I set down the service ticket I was reading. The what? She checked the page again. A family member requested an initial visit. We usually begin with a conversation about housing, transportation, and daily support. Which family member? I believe it was your son-in-law. I don't have a son. She looked uncomfortable. Your son-in-law, then? Joshua Harmon. The office phone rang behind me. I let it ring. What did Joshua tell you? He said your family was considering some support options. I'm not considering them. Of course. This is only an information meeting. At my business, he gave this address. The phone stopped. A second later, the line light began blinking. Claire glanced toward the desk. Would another time be better? No. Sit down for 1 minute. I pointed to the chair near the front counter. She sat with the canvas folder on her knees. I remained standing. When did he contact you? Last week. Before Monday? Yes. What exactly did he request? An overview of independent and assisted living communities in this area. He also asked whether we help families evaluate when home maintenance becomes difficult. Did he say my home was difficult for me? He said you live alone and work long hours. Did he say I'd asked for help? No. Did he say I knew about this appointment? Claire looked at her page. He said the family was beginning a conversation. That wasn't my question. No, it doesn't say you confirmed. Did he give you my email address? He gave me one. She read it aloud. It belonged to Neil Electric. It was an old general address that forwarded to Emily's computer. Did you send information there? Yes, I sent our intake form and several community brochures. When? Last Thursday. Did anyone reply? She checked her folder. I received a short confirmation yesterday. From whom? The signature says Emily. I nodded toward the office copier. May I have a copy of that page? I can't give you someone else's email. It concerns an appointment for me. She considered that, then removed a printed confirmation from her folder. She covered the email address at the top with her hand. You may read the message. It was brief. Thursday afternoon works better, but Howard is usually at the shop by 10. Please keep the conversation general at first. Emily, I read it again. May I copy the wording? Claire nodded. I wrote it on a yellow pad. Then I said, I'm not interested in housing services. Please cancel any follow-up. Certainly. Do not send more material to this company. I'll note that. Did Joshua pay you? No. The initial conversation is free. That mattered. He hadn't moved money or signed me into anything. He had arranged a visit and used Emily to make sure I'd be present. Claire closed her folder. I'm sorry this wasn't clear. You didn't create the confusion. She stood and left through the front door. I watched her cross the parking lot. Joshua appeared in the shop doorway before her car had pulled out. Who was that? He asked. You know who she was. He looked toward the window. She came early. She came exactly when Emily told her I'd be here. His face tightened. It was supposed to be informational? For whom? All of us. You weren't here? I had a job meeting. Emily wasn't here. She was supposed to come. No. Her email said to keep the conversation general at first. He placed his laptop on the counter. You're reading too much into an awkward message. I read every word. You could benefit from knowing your options. My options for what? Eventually? Not today. Then why today? He lowered his voice. Because every time we bring up the future, you shut down. You never brought up a retirement community. We've mentioned downsizing. When? He hesitated. The pamphlets, I said. They were information. They appeared on my desk without a conversation. I left one. I don't know where every piece of mail came from. Which one did you leave? He looked past me toward the service counter. The El Paso community. The first one? Yes. Why didn't you hand it to me? Because you would have reacted like this. You hid it on my desk so I'd discover it alone. I didn't hide it. You didn't put your name on it. He rubbed both hands over his face. This is why we need Thursday. No consultant. Fine. No pamphlets. No housing discussion. We discuss the bid language. Emily wants to discuss more than the bid. Then she can call me herself. She tried at dinner. She asked if I was sleeping. She's worried you're isolated. Then she can visit. She does visit. I visit her, usually with tools. Joshua looked toward the shop. 2 electricians were loading conduit into a van. One glanced through the open doorway. Joshua noticed. He stepped closer and lowered his voice further. You want the whole company hearing this? I didn't invite someone here to discuss where I should live. She isn't from a retirement home. She sells referrals to them. That's not fair. It's accurate enough. He picked up his laptop. Thursday, 6:30. Tell Emily to ask me. She shouldn't have to beg her own father for a conversation. She doesn't. She has my number. He walked away. A few minutes later, Emily called. Can you come Thursday? She asked. Are you asking me directly? Yes. What do you want to discuss? You, me, Joshua, and the companies. That's too much for one conversation. Please don't make this difficult. I'll come at 6:30. Thank you. No consultant. I know. Did Joshua tell you to confirm yesterday's appointment? She went quiet. I thought it might help, she said. Help whom? All of us. Did you know he'd contacted her last week? Yes. Why didn't you tell me? Because you would say no before hearing anything. That's still my answer to give. I'm sorry she surprised you. That isn't the same as being sorry you arranged it. She exhaled slowly. I have to go. Are you coming to work today? No. Tomorrow? Yes. All right. I ended the call and wrote Thursday 6:30 on my calendar. The consultation had given me one useful result. I no longer had to wonder whether the retirement material was random. Joshua had planted at least one pamphlet, and both of them had arranged for a stranger to assess my interest without asking me first. Joshua knew I'd confirmed it. Emily knew I wouldn't cooperate quietly. The city bid still closed Friday at 5. Now the family meeting sat less than a day before it, and my signature was the only item Joshua couldn't prepare without me. At 9 the next morning, Joshua sent another revision. He had removed the sentence about my leaving daily control. In its place, he described Neil Electric and Desert Grid as sharing permanent executive direction. I called him. What does permanent mean? It means stable. It means permanent. We need to show the city our arrangement isn't temporary. Our agreement is temporary unless we both keep renewing our consent. There is no renewal date. There is a termination provision. You keep talking about termination like you want to use it. I keep talking about accuracy. He let out a tired breath. What wording would satisfy you? Desert Grid currently operates under Howard Neal's qualifying party designation. Neal Electric is a proposed subcontractor. The companies remain separate. That sounds weak. It's true. I'll see what I can do. No. Use those words. I have bid consultants helping me. Then let them improve the grammar without changing the facts. He ended the call without agreeing. Later that afternoon, Emily returned to work. She placed her purse beneath her desk and turned on her computer. Are we speaking? I asked. I'm here to work. That wasn't my question. She opened the accounting program. I don't want to argue. Neither do I. Then let me finish the month-end entries. I brought her the worksheet from Desert Grid. This needs an invoice. She looked at the total. Joshua already told me not to process it. He doesn't decide what Neil Electric invoices. He said he's disputing the hours. Did you perform the work? Yes. Was it for his company? Yes. Then prepare the invoice. She looked up at me. You're making $400 into a statement. I'm making it into an account receivable. She turned back to the screen. A few minutes later, the office printer started. She handed me the invoice without looking at my face. Thank you, I said. You're welcome. I carried it into Joshua's office and left it on his keyboard. That was the last direct conversation Emily and I had before Thursday evening. I arrived at their house at 6:28. I didn't bring tools, food, or paperwork. I wanted to see what they believed the meeting was about before I supplied an answer. Joshua opened the door. We're at the table, he said. Emily sat in her usual chair. 3 folders were arranged in front of her. A glass of water waited at my place. No dinner had been prepared. I sat down. Emily touched the first folder. We want to talk without anyone getting angry. All right. Joshua took the chair across from me. This isn't an attack. All right. He waited, perhaps expecting more. When I said nothing, Emily opened the folder. The first page was an organizational chart. Desert Grid appeared at the top. Neil Electric appeared beneath it as the Field Operations Division. Joshua's name was beside Executive Operations. Emily's was beside Finance. Mine was in a small box labeled Founder and Technical Advisor. This has already been in a bid, I said. It's a proposal, Joshua replied. It's printed in color. That doesn't make it final. Emily placed her hand over the page. Can we get through it? I leaned back. Joshua explained that the municipal contract would require unified scheduling. He said vendors would offer better terms if they saw one operation. Emily said combining bookkeeping would reduce duplicate work. They had prepared answers for equipment, office space, and customer billing. They had no answer for why I hadn't been included. Finally, I asked, who owns Neil Electric in this chart? You do, Joshua said. Where does it say that? Ownership isn't the point. It is to the owner. This is about management. Who controls management? He pointed at his own box. I would manage operations. Who approved that? We're asking you now. You already used the idea in a city bid, Emily said. That language can still change. Then change it. Joshua slid the second folder toward me. This is the financial projection. I left it closed. I'm not discussing projected revenue until the structure is honest. He pulled the folder back. This is what I mean. You fixate on one phrase and stop hearing the bigger picture. I hear it. The bigger picture has your company on top of mine. That's because Desert Grid is the prime contractor for one proposed job. It could become the primary source of larger work. Then build it. I am building it, with my license, my staff, my office, and my customers. Emily looked at him. Joshua, that isn't helping. He lowered his voice. I'm trying to explain reality. I turned to her. Do you agree with the chart? She studied the table. I agree that something has to change. What? You can't keep working the way you do. We're discussing management. It's connected. Tell me how. She pushed her hair behind one ear. You take emergency calls yourself. You climb ladders. You go home to an empty house. Then you get angry when we suggest planning. Did I mishandle the Pecan building? No. Did I miss payroll? No. Did I lose Martin's account? No. That was your husband. Joshua's palm hit the table. Not hard, but enough to move the water in my glass. I corrected that. After I caught it. Emily closed her eyes. I said, what else is in the folders? Neither of them answered. I reached for the third one. Joshua put his hand on it first. That's not part of the business proposal. Then why is it on the table? It's information. I pulled the folder toward me. He let go. Inside was a packet printed from the Doña Ana County Probate Court website. The first page was titled, Petition for Appointment of Guardian and Conservator. My full name had been typed into the blank for the proposed protected person. Emily's name appeared in the space for the proposed guardian. I felt the back of my neck go cold. The petition hadn't been signed. It hadn't been filed. Several sections were blank. Others contained short-typed notes. Lives alone. Recent changes in judgment. Resistance to reasonable business planning. Increasing conflict with family and employees. Unsafe physical work, despite age. I read each line. Then I looked at Emily. Did you prepare this? Her face had gone pale. No. Did you know about it? I knew Joshua downloaded information. Did you know he put my name on a petition? No, Joshua said. It's a draft. A draft of what? A safeguard. Against me saying no? Against a sudden decline. What decline? You're not listening to anyone. That's your evidence? No one is filing it. You typed it. To understand what the process requires. Why did you list resistance to business planning? Because irrational decisions can be part of a larger pattern. Emily turned toward him. You said this was for emergencies. It is. You wrote about the bid. I wrote examples. I kept reading. There was no doctor's statement, no examination, no factual claim that I couldn't handle money or make decisions. It was not enough to prove anything, but that wasn't what changed the room. Joshua had taken my disagreement and placed it under a heading about incapacity. You can't transfer an electrical qualification through guardianship, I said. He frowned. That's not what this is for. Then what is it for? To protect the company if you become unable to manage it. Which company? Neil Electric. You don't own Neil Electric. Emily has an interest in what happens to it. She's my daughter. That doesn't make her its owner. I know that. Do you? Emily reached for the folder. Dad, give me that. I slid it to her. She read the typed sections. Her mouth tightened more with each line. You use things I told you, she said to Joshua. You told me you were worried. I said he wasn't sleeping well. You said he takes unnecessary risks. I meant climbing at work. That's what I wrote. You made it sound like he doesn't know what he's doing. Joshua stood. Both of you are reacting to a blank form. My name isn't blank, I said. He walked to the counter and braced his hands against it. I am trying to plan for a company that depends on one person's license, one person who refuses to discuss succession, one person who can shut down an entire operation because he doesn't like a sentence. You made my refusal evidence against me. I haven't done anything with it. You brought it to the meeting. I brought information. Emily closed the folder. Why did you put my name as guardian? Because you're his daughter. You didn't ask me. I thought it was obvious. She stared at him. The room stayed quiet long enough for the refrigerator motor to start. I stood and took my keys from the table. Emily said, Please don't leave. I'm done discussing the bid as a family matter. Joshua turned from the counter. The deadline is tomorrow. I know. What are you going to do? I'm going to separate two things I should never have mixed. What does that mean? It means I won't decide professional liability at your kitchen table. He stepped toward me. You still haven't answered about the signature. I'll answer at the office after I receive accurate language. You're willing to lose the subcontract? I'm willing to refuse a false statement. Emily came around the table. Dad, I didn't know he filled that out. I believe you. Relief crossed her face too quickly. Then I said, But you helped arrange the consultant. You discussed combining the companies without me. You let him use your concerns as business support. I didn't know he would do this. You knew enough to ask me. She folded her arms across herself. I thought you wanted us to take more responsibility. I did. You can't hand things over and then grab them back whenever you feel left out. This isn't about feeling left out. What is it about? Consent. Joshua laughed under his breath. I looked at him. That word bothers you? No. The way you use it does. Like every favor you gave us was a contract we violated. No. I violated my own limits first. Neither of them spoke. That was the cost I hadn't wanted to see. I'd made myself useful because usefulness got me invited. I'd paid bills they could have paid later. I'd repaired things Joshua could have learned to handle. I'd let his company use my designation for free because charging him felt unfriendly. Then I expected them to understand where generosity ended. I hadn't told them because part of me feared they would need me less. Joshua had taken advantage of that. Emily had benefited from it. I had kept the arrangement alive. I'm taking tomorrow off, Emily said. From Neil Electric? Yes. Is that leave, or are you resigning? Her eyes filled again. Do I have to decide right now? No. Tell me Monday, Joshua said. She shouldn't work somewhere she's treated like a suspect. That's her decision. I opened the front door. Emily followed me onto the porch. Are you going to stop speaking to me? No. Then what happens? You call me when you want to speak to your father. I'm speaking to you now. No. You're trying to settle a bid before 5 tomorrow. She looked back through the doorway. I said, "I'll answer if you call without a task." Then I walked to my pickup. At home, I took my wife's notebook from the kitchen drawer. I turned past the service lists and found a clean page. I wrote 3 items. Neil Electric stays separate. My license is not a family favor. Emily is my daughter, not my reason for signing. The city bid had stopped being the main problem. Correcting 2 paragraphs would not fix an arrangement where affection, work, money, and authority had been traded without clear limits. I no longer needed Joshua to admit he had gone too far. I needed every professional connection between us brought into the open, measured, and separated before he could turn another refusal into proof that I shouldn't be allowed to make one. Friday morning, I unlocked the shop at 6:30. I made coffee, turned on the office lights, and wrote a list before anyone arrived. The list was not about retirement, housing, or whether Joshua respected me. I couldn't manage those questions through company policy. I could manage who used our staff, records, equipment, and customer information. At 7, I sent Joshua and Emily a written notice. Desert Grid work had to be tracked separately. Neil Electric would invoice all staff time and materials. Desert Grid files had to be removed from our office server by Monday afternoon. No Neil Electric customer could be transferred or described as a Desert Grid client without written confirmation from that customer. I also included the exact qualification language I would accept. Desert Grid currently operates under Howard Neil's qualifying party designation, pursuant to a separate agreement that remains subject to its existing terms. That was all. I didn't promise project completion. I didn't promise retirement. I didn't promise a merger. At 7:20, Joshua called. "You sent this to Emily while she's on leave. She handles our books. You asked her to decide Monday. I didn't ask her to work today. She can read it Monday. And the server deadline, that's for you. You can't just order me to move company records. Desert Grid isn't my company. Those records support Neil Electric's subcontract. Then keep copies of the subcontract documents. Move everything else. This is retaliation. It's separation. Because of a blank court form, because we never defined the arrangement. We did define it. You supported us. I still support accurate work. No, you support whatever keeps you in control. I'll be at the shop." I ended the call. One of our electricians arrived while I was updating the schedule board. He looked at the jobs, then at Joshua's empty office. "Who's running dispatch today?" "I am." He nodded, like old times, hopefully with fewer mistakes. He handed me a material request. I checked the supply list and noticed he'd ordered a larger disconnect than the job required. "This one's too big." He looked again. "You're right. We have the correct size in the rear cage. That saves a trip. And about $300. He crossed out the line and went to load his van. It was a small thing, but it reminded me why being present mattered. I didn't need to control every choice. I did need to see enough to know when choices affected the company carrying my name. Emily didn't arrive. At 8, I called our accounting software support line. I had them create a separate project code for Desert Grid reimbursements. It took 20 minutes. When I finished, any employee could record Desert Grid time without mixing it into Neil Electric jobs. At 8:30, I printed a list of customers marked as Desert Grid referrals. There were 9. 3 were new inquiries. 6 had prior Neil Electric records. I called the 6. I kept the question simple. Which company did you intend to hire? 4 said Neil Electric. 1 said either company was fine as long as Joshua handled the schedule. The last customer had requested an energy assessment through Desert Grid. I corrected the 4 work orders and left the other 2 where they belonged. Then I sent Joshua the list. 4 customers have confirmed they contacted Neil Electric. Their work stays here. The remaining 2 stay with Desert Grid. His reply came within a minute. "You're calling clients behind my back now?" I wrote back. "I'm confirming their choice." He didn't answer. At 9:15, his truck entered the yard. He came through the shop carrying a black binder. His shirt sleeves were rolled up, and he looked as if he hadn't slept much. "Conference room," he said. I followed him in. He closed the door and placed the binder on the table. I changed the language. I opened to the marked page. He had used my sentence exactly. The organizational chart was gone. The continuity section now described Neil Electric as an independent proposed subcontractor. It didn't mention retirement, combined operations, or permanent management. I read the surrounding pages to make sure the language hadn't moved somewhere else. Joshua watched me. Well, this section is accurate. I had to rewrite 6 pages. You needed to rewrite 2 ideas. The bid consultant says we lost strength. Then we lost strength. He pushed a signature page toward me. The qualification statement now said I was attached under the separate agreement. It didn't add a project guarantee. I compared it with the copy I'd emailed. You got what you wanted, he said. I got an accurate page. Sign it. I kept reading. He stood and walked to the window. The bid portal closes in less than 8 hours. I know. If you're going to refuse anyway, say it now. I said I'd review an accurate version. And I signed the qualification statement. Joshua turned from the window. His eyes went to my signature. For a moment, neither of us spoke. That signature was my visible reward. He had corrected the file because I remained present and refused the earlier version. The companies were described as separate, and my designation was governed by the agreement already in my desk. I made a copy of the signed page. Joshua picked up the binder. You understand this needs cooperation after today. Yes, you can't keep rewriting the relationship every time you're offended. The written relationship didn't change. You know what I mean? I do. That's why I'm documenting it. His expression hardened. You think paper makes you safe from your own family? No, it keeps business questions from becoming family memories. He tucked the binder under his arm. Are you coming to dinner Sunday? Did Emily invite me? I'm inviting you. Is there work attached? He stared at me. Forget it. All right. He opened the conference room door. Joshua, he turned. Submit the file I reviewed. That's the plan. I want the final portal copy after submission. You don't trust me. I want the final portal copy. He walked out without answering. At 10, I met with our crews in the shop. I explained the new project code. If you work on desert grid material, put the hours here, I said, pointing to the line on the revised timesheet. That includes estimates, calls, and office support. One electrician asked, is Desert Grid still feeding us the city job? If it wins, we remain the proposed subcontractor. Anything change for us? Not today. Joshua stood near the tool cage listening. I handed him a stack of the new timesheets. He took them, but he didn't distribute them. After the meeting, I went to his office. Those need to go in the vans. I heard you. Then do it. He held up the stack. You embarrassed me in front of the crews. I explained a billing code. You made it sound like I'd been taking free labor. You had. $400. That's the amount we found. He dropped the forms on his desk. You're enjoying this. No. You got me to rewrite the bid. You called my customers. Now you're walking around reminding everyone who owns the place. I called customers with Neo-Electric histories. You didn't ask me first. I don't need your approval to speak with them. That right there is the problem. What is? You don't think you need anyone. I looked at him. That's not true. It's exactly what you're proving. I needed family enough to avoid charging your company. That was poor judgment. His face changed. So now helping us was a mistake. Helping without limits was. You're going to say that to Emily. I already did. He leaned against the desk. You think she's coming back Monday? That's her decision. She doesn't feel welcome here. She has a job here if she wants it, under surveillance, under separate billing. He laughed quietly. You have no idea how cold you sound. I picked up half the timesheets, put these in the first 3 vans. I took the rest and placed them myself. By noon, the new project code was in use. One electrician logged 40 minutes for a desert grid equipment question. The accounting system assigned the cost correctly. The process worked. It also made the separation visible to everyone. Joshua could no longer borrow time without leaving a record, and he knew exactly who had changed that. At 2, he left for the Desert Grid office with the bid binder. At 4:47, I received an automated email from the city procurement portal. It confirmed that Desert Grid Solutions had submitted a response for the municipal retrofit. Joshua had listed my email for qualification notices. That was required under our agreement, and he apparently hadn't changed it. I called him. The portal says it's submitted. It is. Send me the final copy. I'm driving. When you stop. I have to deliver a backup drive. After that. He ended the call. The portal confirmation included a reference number, but no attachment. I printed it and placed it in my desk. At 5:12, Joshua emailed a PDF. The file contained 53 pages. I compared the qualification statement, the independence language, and the continuity section. All three matched what I had reviewed. At the end was the electronic receipt showing submission at 4:43. For once, the action had produced the result I requested. My signature was attached only to accurate language. Neil Electric remained separate on paper. Desert Grid had met its deadline. Then I checked the document properties. The final PDF had been created from Joshua's Desert Grid computer at 4:31. He had known I would inspect it, and he had given me exactly what I demanded. That didn't mean he had accepted the boundary. It meant the boundary was now the obstacle he could see. Saturday morning, my phone rang while I was eating toast. The caller identification showed Neo Electric's supply house. I answered, expecting a question about the medical office job. A warehouse clerk said, "We have the first city retrofit order staged. Do you want delivery at Mesita Park Drive or the Desert Grid office?" "What city retrofit order?" "The lighting controls and disconnects Joshua ordered yesterday." I set down my coffee. "How much?" "The deposit was $24,000. The rest bills on release." "Which company placed it?" "The purchase order says Neil Electric. Do not release anything." He paused. "Some of it came from our regional warehouse overnight. Keep it there. I'll need to get a manager involved." "Do that." I dressed and drove to the shop. The purchase order was in Joshua's office printer tray. He had used Neil Electric's supplier number and listed the municipal project reference. The deposit had been withdrawn from our operating funds Friday afternoon. That money covered payroll, fuel, and normal materials. We could survive without it for a few weeks, but we shouldn't have to. The city hadn't awarded the contract. Neil Electric didn't have a subcontract. We had only been named as a proposed installer in Desert Grid's bid. I called Joshua. "Why did you spend company money on a contract nobody has won?" "I locked the equipment pricing, using Neil Electric's account. Neil Electric will install it, if Desert Grid wins. The supplier had limited inventory. You didn't ask me. I'm operations manager. I authorize purchases every week. For awarded jobs. This is project preparation. This is my operating cash. It's company cash. I know whose company." He went quiet. Then he said, "That right there is why I did it Friday. If I'd waited, you would have blocked it to prove another point. I'm canceling the order. You'll lose the pricing. We don't have the work. We submitted the bid based on those material costs. You submitted as Desert Grid. Desert Grid can secure its own pricing. They won't extend that credit to a new company. Then you found another Neil Electric resource you didn't mention. You knew we needed purchasing strength. No, I knew you wanted field crews. It's all part of delivery. It's all part of the arrangement you assumed." I heard a door close on his end. "I'm coming to the shop. I'll be here." The supply house manager called while I waited. He said they could cancel most of the order, but several control units had been transferred specifically for us. There would be a cancellation charge of $2,400. "That's 10%, I said. "It covers freight and return handling. Apply the remaining credit to Neil Electric's regular account. I need written authorization. I'll send it." I emailed the cancellation from my company address. Then I printed the confirmation. The money returned as supplier credit, not cash. We would use it over time, but the operating account remained short. The cancellation fee was gone. That was the real loss. Joshua's truck entered the yard 15 minutes later. He parked beside mine and came through the office door fast. "Tell me you didn't cancel it." "I canceled it." He stopped in front of my desk. "You just destroyed our equipment commitment." Desert Grid never had one. It was secured through the installation partner. Without the partner's approval, you signed the bid. I signed a qualification statement. You knew Neil Electric was the subcontractor, proposed subcontractor. He pulled out his phone and opened an email. We quoted firm material costs. Then secure them under Desert Grid. We don't have that credit line. Not my problem. His face reddened. It becomes your problem when the city asks whether our pricing is reliable. Tell them the equipment source changed. After submission, you created that problem. He slapped the purchase order onto my desk. I protected the bid. That is my job. Your job here doesn't include funding Desert Grid without permission. I had purchasing authority. Had. Don't. As of today, purchases above normal service materials require my written approval. You're stripping my authority on a Saturday because I did what operations managers do. I'm limiting it because you used Neil Electric's money for your bid. He stared at me. Emily was right. About what? You help people until they build around your help. Then you pull it away. I didn't pull anything. You took money. For a project that would benefit your company without a contract. It's called planning. It's called exposure. He paced across the office. Do you know how this looks? To whom? The crews, vendors, the city. You approved the bid on Friday and sabotaged the purchasing Saturday. I approved my qualification language. You signed your name to our capacity. My designation is your capacity. My bank balance isn't. He turned toward me. You keep saying my company and your company. The bid doesn't work that way. The final copy says exactly that. On paper. That's where you agreed to it. His expression changed. He had heard the same words he'd used on me. I called our bank's business service number. Saturday support was limited, but I could remove Joshua's purchasing card from new electronic transactions. I did it while he stood in front of my desk. His phone buzzed a moment later. He checked the notification. You canceled my card. I suspended purchasing access. How am I supposed to run Monday's jobs? Submit the material list to me. You want every box of wire approved until we separate Desert Grid purchases. This company will grind to a stop. No, it will take me longer. That's the same thing. Not quite. He shoved his phone into his pocket. Call Emily. Why? Because she needs to hear what you're doing. You call her. He did. He put the phone on speaker before she answered. Your father canceled the city material order, he said. Emily's voice came through small and tired. What? He also shut off my purchasing card. I said. He moved Neil Electric funds into an order for Desert Grid. It was for the subcontract, Joshua said. Emily asked, How much? I told her. She was quiet. Then she said, Joshua, you should have told him. I have authority to order materials. Not that much. You approve larger payments for signed jobs. Exactly, I said. Joshua took the phone off speaker and held it to his ear. You're both missing the point. The bid needs proof we can perform. He listened. No, don't come down here. Another pause. I said don't. He ended the call. What did she say? I asked. She said she's coming. 20 minutes later, Emily arrived in sweatpants and an old Neil Electric shirt. Her hair was tied back. She looked at the purchase order, the cancellation confirmation, and the supplier credit. You lost the fee? She asked. I accepted the fee to stop the rest. She sat at her desk and opened the bank record. The deposit cleared yesterday. I know. You're going to have to move money from the reserve for payroll. We have supplier credit for normal materials. We'll adjust. Joshua stood behind her chair. If he hadn't canceled, it would have become job cost after award. If there is an award, she said. He moved away from her. Now you're on his side. I'm looking at the account. Look at the bid. I didn't approve this purchase. You knew we needed equipment. I knew we needed quotes. She turned toward me. You should restore his card for Neil Electric jobs. Not today. Dad, the crews call him from supply counters. They can call me. You'll miss half the calls. Then I'll fix the process. Joshua laughed. He doesn't want a process. He wants everyone asking permission again. I looked at Emily. Are you returning Monday? She glanced at Joshua. I don't know. I need an answer. I can't work between you like this. You don't have to. Work for Neil Electric or work for Desert Grid. Track the hours and keep the records separate. You're asking me to choose between my father and my husband. I'm asking you to choose which company pays for your time. It doesn't feel different. I know. Her eyes filled. Joshua came around the desk and stood beside her. If you push this separation any further, there won't be a subcontract, he said. That's Desert Grid's choice. No, it's yours. You're making cooperation impossible. You spent money after I documented the boundary. I secured pricing. You tied my company to your bid, because that was the agreement. The agreement is about my designation. You really want to reduce it to that? Yes. He stared at me for several seconds. Then he said, Fine, let's talk about the designation. If you challenge the bid or pull your license, Desert Grid loses eligibility. I know. Neil Electric loses the city work. I know. Emily loses everything she's put into this. Emily said, Don't use me. I'm explaining the cost. He kept looking at me. You'll damage her marriage because you can't accept a transition. That's between you and Emily. No, Howard. You made it between us when you started treating every shared resource like theft. I didn't use that word. You didn't have to. Emily stood. I'm leaving. Joshua reached for her arm. She moved away before he touched it. "Are you coming home?" he asked. Later. She picked up her purse. At the door, she looked at me. "If you withdraw that designation, I can't keep working here." I felt the words in my chest. "Is that your choice?" I asked. "It would put Joshua's company at risk. It's already at risk because he built it around something he doesn't control. He built it because you told him he could. I told him he could use it under an agreement. You knew what it meant to us." I knew what I hoped it meant. She shook her head. "I can't do this." She left. Joshua followed her into the parking lot. They argued beside their vehicles. I couldn't hear the words through the office glass. Emily drove away alone. Joshua came back inside. "You got your separation?" he said. "No. I got a canceled order and a daughter who won't answer me. That's the price you chose." He picked up the purchase order and tore it in half. "The city review starts next week. If you cause trouble now, everybody will know why. Why? Because you're angry your daughter sided with her husband." He dropped the pieces into the trash. Then he walked out. I remained at the shop until dark. I restored enough purchasing access for routine jobs, but every large order now required a second approval from me. I prepared Monday's schedule and transferred payroll funds from the company reserve. Before leaving, I unlocked the bottom drawer. The qualifying party agreement was beneath my wife's photograph. I read the termination paragraph again. 30 days written notice. Joshua would have time to find someone else. Desert Grid could keep operating during the notice period. The provision wasn't punishment. It was the exit both of us had accepted. But the city bid depended on my name at the time of award. If I used that exit, the bid would probably fail. Neil Electric would lose the subcontract. Emily might leave my company and my life at the same time. I put the agreement in my briefcase. For the first time, I took it home. I wasn't ready to serve notice. I was ready to accept that protecting my consent might cost every benefit attached to surrendering it. Sunday morning, I spread the agreement across my kitchen table. Beside it, I placed the signed bid page, the original continuity language, Joshua's purchase order, and my notes from the consultant's visit. Most of those papers showed the same problem. None of them could solve it. The purchase order could justify removing Joshua's spending access. The false transition language could justify refusing the bid. The court form could justify a family argument that might last the rest of our lives. Only the qualifying party agreement addressed the thing I needed to stop. It gave Desert Grid permission to operate under my designation. It also told both of us how that permission ended. I read the notice paragraph again. Either party could terminate without cause by delivering written notice. The termination would become effective after 30 days. During that period, Desert Grid could seek another qualifying party and update its state record. There was no penalty. No accusation was required. I had known the provision existed when I signed. What I hadn't known was how the state treated bids already submitted under a departing qualifier. I went to the Construction Industries Division website and found the change form. It asked for the company name, license number, qualifying party, notice date, and effective date. The instructions were short. They didn't answer my bid question. I printed 2 copies. At 10, Emily called. I almost answered by saying, "What happened?" That was our usual pattern. If she called on a weekend, I assumed something needed repair. Instead, I said, "Hello, Emily." She was quiet for a second. "Hi, are you all right?" "Yes." "Where are you?" "At home." I waited. She said, "Joshua went out." "All right." Another silence. Then she asked, "Did you take the agreement from the shop?" "Yes." "Why?" I wanted to read it without interruption. "Are you ending it?" "I haven't served notice. That isn't what I asked. I haven't decided what I'm doing tomorrow." She exhaled into the phone. "Joshua thinks you're going to call the city." "I'm not calling the city today. Please don't destroy his company. I don't control his company. You know what I mean." "Yes. You mean his company depends on my designation. You offered it." "I did." He left a secure job to start Desert Grid. He still works at Neil Electric. Not after this, probably. "Is that what he told you?" "He said he can't keep working for someone who treats him like a thief. I suspended his purchasing authority after he spent company funds. He says you humiliated him." "Who was present?" "That isn't the point. It matters if we're using the word humiliated." She sounded tired. "Why do you always make me prove every sentence now?" "Because loose sentences created this problem. Mom could talk to you without being cross-examined. I looked toward the small notebook beside the agreement. Your mother asked direct questions. She also knew when to let something go. Yes. Would she want you to do this to us? I closed my eyes. Don't use her that way. I'm not. You are. She isn't here to approve either side. I miss her too. I know. Emily's voice broke slightly. She covered it with a cough. For a while, we said nothing. Then I asked, "Did you call because you wanted to speak to me, or because Joshua wants an answer?" "Both." "Which part is yours?" She took a long breath. "I don't want to lose you. I'm here. It doesn't feel like it. I'm not coming over to work on the house. I didn't ask you to." "No. You called me without a task. That's what you wanted, isn't it?" "Yes." She made a small sound that might have been a laugh. "You could at least make it less awkward." "I don't know how yet. Neither do I." That was the first honest thing either of us had said that morning. I asked, "Are you returning to Neil Electric?" "I don't know. I need a decision for payroll and access." There it is. That question still exists. I know. "Come to the operations meeting tomorrow. Give me an answer then." "With Joshua? He's the operations manager. He needs to attend." "Is this another family meeting?" "No. We'll discuss jobs, purchasing, and your work status. And the designation, if it becomes necessary." She was quiet again. Finally she said, "I'll be there." After the call, I put the court petition in a separate envelope. I considered taking it to the shop and placing it on the conference table. Then I stopped. Showing it to the crews would damage Joshua and Emily without changing my legal responsibility. It would make them defend themselves in front of employees. It would also let me pretend public embarrassment was accountability. I put the envelope in a kitchen drawer. The city needed accurate qualification records. Neil Electric needed control of its money. Our employees needed clear instructions. None of them needed the worst page from a family argument. At noon, Joshua emailed me. The subject line read, "Proposed Resolution." He offered to repay the cancellation fee through Desert Grid. In return, he wanted his purchasing access restored and the server separation postponed until after the city award. He also attached a management memo. The memo gave him sole authority over daily operations at Neil Electric, while I remained owner and qualifier. It said any change to that authority required 30 days written notice. He had borrowed my termination language for himself. I called him. "Did you write this today?" "Yes." "Why would I give you notice before changing management at my company? So I can operate without being undercut. You spent money I didn't approve. I had authority. You don't now. And that uncertainty makes Desert Grid vulnerable. Desert Grid isn't entitled to management control here. The companies need stability. The final bid says they're separate. The city doesn't care how we handle internal operations. I care." He was silent. I said, "Repay the cancellation fee without conditions. You're refusing to negotiate. I'm refusing to trade repayment for control. Then I'll dispute the fee. You place the order for Neil Electric. For an unawarded job. You approve the bid." We were moving through the same circle again. I stopped him. "Come to the operations meeting tomorrow at 9. What are you planning? An operations meeting." "Emily said you might discuss the designation," Emily asked. "Are you terminating it?" "I have not served notice. You're avoiding the question." "Yes." He didn't like that answer. "Then I want a witness," he said. "The employees will be there for the schedule. Business decisions can be documented. You're going to make a show of this. No. If you pull my qualification in front of the crews, everyone will know you did it to punish me. I haven't said I'm pulling anything. You took the agreement home. How did you know?" He hesitated. "Emily told me. She asked if I had it. Because she's afraid of what you'll do." "What are you afraid I'll do? Ruin a $1,800,000 bid because I ordered material too early? That isn't the whole question. It is now. No. The question is whether my consent still exists when every limit is treated as sabotage." He didn't answer. I ended the call. At 5 that evening, I poured 1 glass of bourbon. My wife had bought the bottle for our anniversary in 2020. There was still less than half left. I usually forgot it existed. I carried the glass to the kitchen table and sat beside the qualifying agreement. I didn't toast her. I didn't ask what she would do. I drank slowly and read the notice form again. The easier response would have been to fire Joshua Monday morning. I had enough reason after the purchase order. I could remove his office access, tell the crews he'd abused his position, and leave Desert Grid scrambling before the state record changed. That would feel decisive. It would also mix two roles again. Joshua's employment at Neil Electric was one question. My willingness to accept professional responsibility for Desert Grid was another. I decided the second question had to stand on its own. The 30-day provision gave him time. He could find another qualified electrician. He could revise his business plan. He could explain the change to the city if it became effective before the award. I would not shorten the period or demand that the city reject him immediately. I filled in Desert Grid's company information and my license number. I left the notice date and signature blank. The bourbon was gone by the time I finished. I washed the glass, dried it, and returned it to the cabinet. Monday morning, I called the state licensing office as soon as the phone line opened. A clerk checked Desert Grid's record and confirmed that I was its only listed qualifying party. If I deliver the termination form today, when does it take effect? I asked. 30 calendar days, if that matches your agreement. And during those 30 days, you remain responsible while you're listed. Can the company name a replacement? Yes. The replacement must qualify and be approved. What happens if no replacement is approved by the effective date? The company can't continue electrical contracting under that classification. What about a public bid submitted before notice? That depends on the agency's bid rules. We only verify who is attached on the date they ask us. So, the state record will show the change when it becomes effective? Yes. Can a guardian, manager, or company officer continue my designation for me? No. The qualification is personal. It doesn't transfer. That removed the last uncertainty created by the court form. No family petition could preserve my designation. No management memo could control it. If I gave proper notice, the authority ended after the ordinary period we had both accepted. The clerk emailed me a blank confirmation sheet and instructions. I thanked her and ended the call. I entered that day's date on the notice. Then I calculated the effective date and wrote it in words. I still didn't sign. At 8:45, I placed the completed form in the locked drawer at Neil Electric. The agreement went beneath it. The brass key with red wire returned to my pocket. The crews began gathering in the shop. At 8:52, Emily entered through the front door. She set her purse beside her desk, but didn't sit down. Joshua came in from the yard carrying the morning mail. He stopped at the mail station and turned one envelope over in his hands. I recognized the picture through the address window. The older man beside the swimming pool was the same image I'd seen in the opening of this story. Joshua slid the envelope beneath two supplier catalogs. "What are you doing?" I asked, sorting the mail. "That one has my name. It's advertising." Emily looked across the office. "What is?" "Nothing," Joshua said. "We have a meeting." The crews were already waiting near the whiteboard. I took the envelope from beneath the catalogs and carried it into the shop. Joshua followed me. "Howard, can we handle personal mail later?" It came to the company, so do credit card offers. I set the envelope on the workbench without opening it. "Run the meeting," I said. He looked at me as if he expected an argument. When none came, he picked up the schedule clipboard. The electricians gathered closer. Emily stood in the doorway between the office and shop. Joshua began with Monday's service calls. He assigned a lighting repair, a commercial estimate, and 2 panel inspections. Then he reached the material approval column. "There's been some confusion about purchasing," he said. "For the time being, send all requests through me." I spoke from beside the workbench. "Requests above routine service materials come through me." Several employees looked between us. Joshua kept his eyes on the clipboard. "That creates delays," he said. "Until we settle the management structure, I'll continue handling daily operations. There is no new management structure. This is what we need to discuss. Discuss it after the schedule." He placed the clipboard on the workbench. "Fine, let's discuss it now," Emily said. "Joshua?" He raised one hand toward her. "No, everyone needs clarity. We've had conflicting instructions for more than a week." One of the electricians shifted his weight and looked toward the open yard door. Joshua continued. "Howard has been under a lot of strain. Emily and I are helping him consider a reduced daily role. Until that's settled, work assignments still come through me." There it was. He didn't say I was incompetent. He didn't say a petition had been prepared. He made the same claim in softer words and gave it to my employees as an established plan. I asked, "When did I agree to a reduced role?" He stared at me. "This isn't the place. You brought it here." I'm trying to keep the company functioning. Answer the question. You've said you want less field work. When did I give you daily control? He took a breath through his nose. You already gave me daily control. I've been running operations for years. You've been employed as operations manager. That means I manage operations. It doesn't mean you announce my retirement. I didn't use that word. You didn't have to. Emily stepped into the shop. Can we send everyone to their jobs? Joshua turned toward her. Are you coming back to work or not? She looked embarrassed. I came to answer that, then answer. She glanced at me before speaking. I'll keep doing Neil Electric's books. I'm not doing Desert Grid work from here. Joshua's face changed. You decided that without talking to me? We talked all weekend. You said you needed time. I've had time. He lowered his voice. We'll discuss it at home. No, I said. Her employment decision belongs here. He looked back at the crews. Everyone had stopped pretending not to listen. This is exactly the problem, he said. Personal decisions are interfering with the company. We need one person directing daily work. And you selected yourself. I'm the operations manager. You're also the owner of the company using my designation. Which company brought in the largest opportunity Neil Electric has seen in years? A bid is not an award. It will never become one if you keep destabilizing the team. He had committed to his version by then. In front of the employees, he was the person holding the businesses together. I was the strained older owner creating confusion because I couldn't accept a reasonable transition. I turned to the envelope. Joshua saw my hand move toward it. Can we finish this first? He asked. I think this is part of it. I opened the flap and pulled out the brochure. The cover showed the same smiling man beside the pool. Inside were photographs of a dining room, a shuttle bus, and an apartment with handrails in the bathroom. Across the top of the first page were the words, "A simpler, safer life is waiting." One employee looked down at the floor. I turned the envelope over. The return label read, Neil Electric. 1840 Mezilla Park Drive, Las Cruces, New Mexico. Emily came closer. Why does that have our return address? That's what I'd like to know. Joshua picked up the clipboard again. It's a mailing error. You called it junk before I opened it. Because it is junk. Did you order it? No answer came. I asked again. Did you order this? Joshua looked around the shop. You're making a private matter public. You used the company address. That doesn't mean I sent it. Emily reached for the envelope. Let me see the postage. She examined the printed mark in the upper corner, then walked quickly to her desk. Joshua followed her into the office. Emily, leave it. She sat at her computer. You said you didn't send it. I said the address doesn't prove anything. Then the record won't either. She signed into Neil Electric's online postage account. That account handled certified letters, supplier returns, and the occasional customer packet. Every label carried the user, destination, amount, and creation time. I stood behind her. The employees remained in the shop doorway. Emily searched my name. One result appeared. The label had been created Friday evening at 5:38. The recipient was Howard Neal at Neil Electric. The return address was Neil Electric. The username was Joshua Harmon. The postage had been charged to the company. Emily opened the item details. A description field read, Retirement Information Packet. Her hand came away from the mouse. Joshua. He stood beside the filing cabinet. What? You used our postage. It was a few dollars. That's not what I'm asking. He looked at me. All right, I sent it. No one moved. He continued before I asked why. I wanted you to see an option without immediately rejecting it. You won't take anything seriously if it comes from me. So, you made it come from Neil Electric. I used the account that was available. You mailed it back to the same address. I wanted it included with your company mail. Why? So maybe you'd understand that stepping back isn't some personal attack. I held the brochure by its folded edge. He pointed toward it. That place has meals, transportation, maintenance, people around. Emily wouldn't have to wonder whether you fell off a ladder and nobody found you. Emily stood. Don't put that on me. You've said the same thing. I said I worry, and I did something about it. You sent him this from his own company. I sent information. I looked at Joshua. He winced at the sentence, but he didn't deny it. Instead, he crossed his arms. Yes, because this company needs a future. You need somewhere managed, and Emily needs to stop spending every week worried about what you'll do next. What happens to Neil Electric after I move somewhere managed? You remain the owner. Doing what? Whatever you want, that makes sense. And you run it. I already run most of it. With Emily keeping the books, if she stops turning routine accounting into a loyalty test. Emily said, "That's enough." Joshua turned toward her. "No, it isn't. We're all pretending this can continue. It can't. Desert Grid has the municipal bid. Neil Electric has the crews and credit. Howard has the license. We unify the companies, give him an advisory role, and stop fighting every day." That was the complete version. The retirement community was not separate from the business plan. A managed apartment would remove me from daily work. Joshua would control operations. Emily would manage the money. My designation would remain attached because the bid treated it as settled. He had finally said it where other people could hear him. I went to my office. Joshua called after me. "Don't walk away again. I'm getting something." I unlocked the bottom drawer. First, I removed the original bid pages. Then I took out the qualifying party agreement and the completed notice form. When I returned, the crews were still there. I placed the original continuity page beside the brochure. "This is the language Joshua wanted in the city bid," I said. He stepped forward. "That is not the submitted page." "No, I made you remove it. Then it's irrelevant." I pointed to the sentence promising my designation through project completion. Then I pointed to the paragraph describing my transition out of daily control. This came before the consultant visited. It came before the court form at your kitchen table. It came before today. One employee looked directly at Joshua. Emily read the page again. Joshua said, "We corrected it. You corrected the file. You did not correct your plan. That page proves I listened to you. The brochure proves why you wrote it." He looked at the notice in my hand. "What is that?" I took the red-wrapped key from my pocket and set it beside the agreement. "This agreement allows either of us to end my qualifying party consent with 30 days written notice." His face lost color. "Howard, you accepted that provision when we started. Don't do this here. You used my company to tell me where I should live. Here is exactly where this belongs." I signed the notice. Emily covered her mouth with one hand. Joshua stepped toward the workbench. "If you file that, Desert Grid loses the bid. You have 30 days to secure another qualifier. No qualified electrician will step into a project this size after submission. That is your business problem. Neil Electric loses the subcontract too. I know you're throwing away a year of work. I'm ending one unpaid designation. Because of a brochure? Because my consent became the part of your plan you thought I couldn't withdraw." I handed him the notice. He didn't take it. I placed it on the clipboard in front of him. "Delivery is effective today. The designation ends after 30 calendar days." He looked at the page. "You planned this. I prepared for a decision. This is revenge." "No. Revenge would be immediate. You have the notice period we agreed on." Emily lowered her hand. "Dad, is there another way? Not one where my license remains a family obligation." Joshua picked up the notice. For the first time since Desert Grid began, he was holding a business problem he couldn't hand back to me. I sent the crews to their jobs. Then I emailed the signed notice to Joshua, Desert Grid's company address, and the state licensing office. The operations meeting ended without a schedule argument. By 10 that morning, the state acknowledged receipt. My withdrawal would take effect in 30 days. Joshua's company still had time. My consent no longer belonged to its future. The next morning, Joshua arrived before me. By the time I entered the office, he had packed the Desert Grid files into 3 cardboard boxes. Emily sat at her desk, separating digital folders on the server. Neither of them said good morning. Joshua carried the first box toward the side door. "Leave the Neil Electric customer files," I said. "They're copies. Let me check." He stopped and lowered the box onto Emily's desk. I went through the folders. 2 contained Desert Grid estimates for new customers. 1 contained lighting records from a long-standing Neil Electric account. That stays. The customer requested an energy proposal. Did they approve transferring their service history? No. Then the history stays. You can keep your proposal. He removed the Neil Electric pages and placed them beside Emily. "Anything else?" he asked. "Routine purchases still need the revised approval." "I remember." He carried the box out. Emily watched the side door close. "He barely slept," she said. I'm sorry to hear that. Are you? Yes. You don't sound sorry. I'm not reversing the notice. I didn't ask you to. She turned back to her computer. For the next several days, we spoke only about work. She tracked every Desert Grid hour separately. She removed its invoices from our shared folders. She changed the old general email so Desert Grid messages no longer reached her Neil Electric inbox. Those were actions, not apologies. I noticed them. Joshua continued managing our schedule, but he stopped talking to me unless a decision required approval. When a crew needed materials, he sent a list by email, even if I was in the next room. On Thursday, a master electrician called my office. I've been asked about qualifying Desert Grid, he said. That's between you and Joshua. He says the city project is already bid. It is. Did you review the electrical scope? Yes. Why are you leaving? I'm ending a business arrangement. He waited for more. I didn't give it. He asked, would I be assuming the submitted work under my qualification? You'd need to ask the city and the state. I won't interpret your responsibility for you. That answer tells me enough. He declined the opportunity that afternoon. 2 others contacted me during the notice period. I gave both the same information. Neither agreed to replace me. Joshua accused me of discouraging them. We were in the conference room when he said it. You keep telling them to talk to the state. They should. You could say the bid is sound. I can say I reviewed the electrical scope. You could recommend Desert Grid. That would make me responsible for their choice. He pushed a printed email across the table. This one says he won't inherit another qualifier's bid exposure. That's his decision. It's the word inherit. He got that from you. I never spoke that word to him. Joshua leaned back. If you rescind the notice until after award, I'll pay you. No, a proper monthly fee. We should have done that at the beginning. Yes, we should have. Then fix it. The missing fee wasn't the only problem. I'll sign whatever boundaries you want. You signed boundaries already. People renegotiate agreements, not while one of them is being pressured through family. His mouth tightened. You really believe I was trying to put you away? I believe you wanted me somewhere managed so you could control daily operations. I wanted Emily to stop worrying. You also wanted both companies unified. They should be unified. That answer is why the notice stays. He took back the email. You'll regret this when the city moves on. I already know what it costs. At the end of the 30 days, the state record changed. Desert Grid no longer showed an approved qualifying party. Joshua had submitted 1 replacement application, but the electrician withdrew before approval. The company's electrical classification became inactive. The city had scheduled its procurement review for that Thursday. The meeting took place in a chamber at Las Cruces City Hall. It was smaller than people imagine when they hear the word chamber. There were rows of fixed chairs, a long front table, 2 wall screens, and a clock that ran 3 minutes slow. I sat in the second row. Emily sat beside me. She had asked if she could ride with me, but I told her I would meet her there. I wasn't ready to turn the drive into a family conversation. Joshua sat on her other side with the bid binder on his lap. Rosa Gonzalez handled the review. I knew her only by name from city paperwork. She spoke clearly and moved through each bid requirement in order. Desert Grid's price was competitive. Its technical plan had passed the first review. Neil Electric's experience had supported the installation portion. Then Rosa reached bidder eligibility. She looked at the state verification displayed on her monitor. Desert Grid Solutions does not currently show an active qualifying party for the required electrical classification. Joshua stood. Our qualifier was active when the bid was submitted. Rosa looked up. Please state your name. Joshua Harmon, managing member. The solicitation requires eligibility through evaluation and award. We're within a replacement process. Has the replacement been approved by the state? The application is pending. I knew that wasn't true anymore. The electrician had withdrawn. Rosa checked the record again. The state shows no pending approved qualifier. It may not be updated. The city verifies from the state record. Do you have written confirmation of an approved qualifying party? Joshua opened the binder. He turned several pages, then looked toward me. I didn't move. The signed bid page identified me under the separate agreement. It did not guarantee that I would remain. Joshua said, our original qualifier is present. Rosa looked at me. Mr. Neal, are you currently attached to Desert Grid Solutions? No. Did your withdrawal complete under the state process? Yes. She returned her attention to Joshua. Then Desert Grid does not meet the qualification requirement at review. The bid is non-responsive. He remained standing. The electrical work would be performed by Neil Electric. Rosa checked another page. Neil Electric is listed as a subcontractor. The prime bidder must maintain the required qualification. Can we substitute the prime arrangement? Not after bid closing. There was no punishment in her voice, no satisfaction. She was applying the same rule to the same record she would have checked for any bidder. Joshua sat down. Rosa moved to the next eligible bidder. Their price was higher, but their qualification record was current. The contract recommendation moved to them. The $1,800,000 city job was gone. So was Neil Electric's expected subcontract. Emily placed both hands in her lap. She didn't look at me. Joshua closed the binder carefully. He waited until the review ended, then stood and walked out without speaking. Emily remained in her chair. "Are you going after him?" I asked. "No." "Why?" He knew this could happen. So did I. She looked at the empty front table. I kept telling myself the project would make everything worth it. What is everything? Using your office, using your license for free, letting him talk about taking over like you'd already agreed. I said nothing. She continued. "When you asked questions, I treated you like you were causing the problem. It was easier than admitting I liked what the arrangement gave us." "That's true." She nodded once. "I'm sorry. I believe you." She looked at me then. "Does that help?" "Not yet." Her eyes dropped. I stood and picked up my folder. "You can meet me at the shop." She nodded again. Joshua arrived at Neil Electric an hour later. He placed his office key, purchasing card, and company phone on my desk. "I resign," he said. "Effective when?" "Now." "You have open jobs. You removed my authority. I required approval for larger purchases. You made it impossible to manage. You can give me a handover list. I'm done working for you." "Put that in writing." He laughed once. "Of course." He went to his office and typed a short resignation. He printed it, signed it, and handed it to me. Emily stood near her desk. "Are you coming home?" he asked her. "After I finish payroll? You're staying here?" "I work here." "After what he did?" She looked at him steadily. "After what we did." His face hardened. "Don't make me the only bad person because you feel guilty." "I didn't." "You're choosing him." "I'm choosing my job today." Joshua looked at me. "This is what you wanted." "No. I wanted my consent respected. You got the same result." He picked up his personal box and left through the side door. Emily watched his truck exit the yard. Then she sat down and reopened payroll. I processed Joshua's resignation, reassigned his open jobs, and called our crews one at a time. I told them he no longer worked for Neil Electric. I did not tell them why. By 5, every job had a new contact. The schedule was rough, the city subcontract was gone, and Joshua's office stood empty. Emily finished payroll before she left. At the front door, she turned toward me. "Can I call you tomorrow?" "Yes." "Without work?" "Yes." She nodded and walked to her car. I remained at the shop with the lights on, learning how much had to be rebuilt without restoring the arrangement that had broken it. The next evening, Emily called at 7:12. I was heating soup when the phone rang. "Hi," she said. "Hi, I said I'd call." "You did." She asked what I'd eaten. I told her the soup was still in the pan. I asked whether she had gone home after work. "Yes." "How was Joshua? Angry? At me? At both of us?" I stirred the soup. "Are you safe there?" "Yes." "We're not yelling. We're barely talking." "All right." She asked about the schedule. Then she stopped herself. "No." I said this wouldn't be about work. We can talk about work another time. I don't know what to say. Neither do I. We stayed on the phone anyway. She told me she'd found one of her mother's old recipe cards inside a cookbook. I told her to keep it. We spoke for 12 minutes. Nothing broke. Nobody needed money. No decision depended on my answer. The next morning, Emily found a pending supplier request connected to the canceled city order. Before Joshua resigned, he had asked that the unused credit be transferred from Neil Electric to Desert Grid. The supplier hadn't processed it. Emily printed the request and brought it to my office. "This belongs to Neil Electric," she said. "Yes, I'm canceling the transfer. Thank you." She called the supplier while I listened. She confirmed that the credit stayed under our account. Then she changed our payment settings so any future transfer required my approval as well as hers. "I should have done this sooner," she said. "We both should have." A week later, Desert Grid sent Neil Electric a payment for the cancellation fee and the bookkeeping hours. Joshua included no note. I deposited it. The payment closed the debt. It did not reopen his purchasing access, return my designation, or make the court form disappear. For the first month after he resigned, Joshua and I didn't speak. Emily still came to work. She arrived on time, tracked every hour, and stopped handling Desert Grid records on our equipment. At home, she and Joshua remained together. She didn't ask me to approve that. I didn't ask her to leave him. One Tuesday afternoon, she stood in my doorway holding her car keys. "My car won't start," she said. "What does it do?" "It clicks. Battery, most likely." She hesitated. Then she said, "Would you give me a ride home?" "I'll have it checked tomorrow." That was different from leaving a hint and waiting for me to solve everything. "Yes," I said. On the way, she called a repair shop and arranged a tow for the morning. She paid for it herself. I dropped her outside her house. Joshua's truck was in the driveway. "Do you want to come in?" she asked. "For what? Dinner? Did you already make it?" "I'm about to. Does anything need fixing? The security light is still in the box." I looked toward the garage. She smiled slightly. "It can stay there." I went inside. Joshua was at the kitchen island. His laptop was closed this time. "Howard," he said. "Joshua?" Emily made scrambled eggs, potatoes, and toast. It wasn't a special meal. Nobody had prepared a speech. Halfway through dinner, Joshua said, "I changed Desert Grid's service description." I waited. "We're doing project scheduling and equipment procurement. No electrical contracting. That matches what you control. I'm also looking into qualifying on my own. That will take time." "I know." He moved a potato around his plate. "I could apply sooner if you verified more of my field experience. I'll verify work you actually performed. That's what I'm asking. I won't sign anything broader." His jaw tightened, then relaxed. "Fine." Emily looked between us, but didn't interfere. After dinner, Joshua carried his plate to the sink. I expected him to bring up the city bid, or the money Desert Grid had lost. He didn't. When I left, the security light remained unopened in the garage. 2 weeks later, Joshua sent me a written list of work he wanted verified. I corrected 3 dates and removed 2 projects where he had managed scheduling but hadn't performed electrical work. He called that evening. "You cut almost a year." "I cut work you didn't do. I supervised it. That isn't the same experience. It should count for something, not as electrical field work." He was quiet. Then he said, "Send me what you can honestly sign." I did. Helping him document real experience did not cost me money. It did not place my license on his company. It left the responsibility for qualifying with him. He never apologized for the brochure. He said once that it had been a stupid way to start a conversation. That was as close as he came. I answered, it wasn't the conversation, it was the plan behind it. He didn't argue, but he didn't agree. We remained careful around each other. Emily's apology was different because her behavior changed. She began asking direct questions. "Can I come by Sunday? Would you like dinner on Wednesday? Can we talk about Mom's anniversary?" Sometimes I said yes, sometimes I had plans. She stopped treating a refusal as evidence that I didn't love her. I also changed. When she mentioned a household problem, I didn't automatically load my tools. One evening, she said the garage light had finally stopped working. I asked, "Are you telling me or asking Neil Electric for service?" She laughed. "I'm telling you, Joshua hired someone." "Good." He complained about the invoice. I would have charged him too. "I know." At the shop, rebuilding took longer than I expected. I covered dispatch while the crew leads handled more of their own jobs. We passed on 2 projects because we lacked office capacity. Our revenue dropped for a while. The city subcontract would have made the year easier. Losing it was not symbolic. It meant fewer equipment purchases and tighter schedules. Still, payroll went out. Customers kept calling. Martin's Warehouse sent us another service request. Emily prepared monthly reports showing Neil Electric's actual position, without Desert Grid projections mixed into them. The numbers were smaller and more useful. One Friday, she placed a report on my desk. "We're stable," she said. "Not growing, not shrinking either. I can live with that for now." She nodded. Before leaving, she noticed my wife's photograph beside the locked drawer. "Mom hated that first van," she said. "She hated the passenger door. It wouldn't open, it opened. It wouldn't close." Emily picked up the photograph. "She still looks proud. She was proud we could afford a van with 2 mostly working doors." Emily returned the picture to its place. Do you want to have dinner on Sunday? Just us? What are you making? I thought we'd go out. Where? The place with the red boots is gone, so somewhere with chairs that don't need wiping. I smiled. All right. There was no task in the invitation. Sunday dinner became occasional, not automatic. Sometimes Joshua joined us. Sometimes he didn't. When he did, we spoke about ordinary things. Traffic on Loman Avenue, material prices, a restaurant that had changed owners. He stopped asking for the designation. Months later, he showed me a desert grid proposal before sending it. The electrical installation was assigned to a licensed contractor under that contractor's own qualification. I'm not responsible for their scope, Joshua said. They are. That's the correct arrangement. He nodded. He didn't ask me to review the price. Emily visited my house one Saturday with no list in her hand. She brought the recipe card she'd found and cooked at my stove. The dish didn't taste exactly like my wife's. We both knew that. We ate it anyway. Afterward, Emily washed the plates while I dried them. She said, I thought being useful to Joshua meant I was supporting my marriage. I thought being useful to both of you meant I was still included. She handed me another plate. We made a mess of that. Yes. She waited. I placed the plate in the cabinet. We're cleaning it up. That was all I could honestly offer. The brochure remained in my locked desk for several months. I kept it with the original bid page and the withdrawal notice. The documents mattered because they showed what happened. The brochure mattered because it showed how ordinary pressure could become humiliation when nobody stopped it. Eventually, I kept the business records and removed the brochure. If you've stayed with me this far, tell me what you would have done and subscribe if you want to hear more stories like mine. That evening, Emily called while I was closing the shop. She didn't need a ride. Joshua didn't need a signature. Their house was working well enough without me. She wanted to confirm Sunday dinner. 6? She asked. 6 is fine. Should I bring anything? Just yourself. All right, Dad. After we hung up, I placed my toolbox near the front door. The red-wrap desk key was in my pocket. My wife's photograph remained beside the drawer, facing the same shop she had helped me build. Outside, the last light settled across the fenced yard and the parked service vans. I turned off the office lights, carried the brochure to the blue bin, and let it fall among the used paper. I locked the Messia Park Drive shop at dusk with my toolbox beside me and the retirement brochure in the recycling bin.